Prologue. They say graduation parties are supposed to mark new beginnings, fresh starts filled with promise and possibility. For most people, that might be true. The caps thrown high, the champagne toasts, the tearful goodbyes before everyone scatters to chase their dreams. For Sage, tonight's celebration feels more like an ending than a beginning. She watches from across the backyard as her best friend Derek laughs with a group of their classmates, his arm draped casually around her younger sister's shoulders. Luna glows in the golden light of the string lanterns, her copper hair catching the warm breeze as she gazes up at Derek with obvious adoration. Sage supposes she should feel happy for them. Derek and Luna make sense together. He with his easy charm and athletic build, she with her natural beauty and infectious smile. They look like they stepped out of a magazine spread about young love. But Sage had loved Derek first, had been there through his parents' divorce when they were 15, had helped him study for the SATs, had listened to all his fears about the future. She'd been his constant, his anchor. Just not the girl he wanted. "You okay, sweetheart?" Her mother, Diana, appears beside her with a concerned smile. "You look a little pale." Sage forces a smile. "Just tired from all the planning. This party turned out bigger than I expected." It's true. What started as a small gathering for their graduating class has somehow expanded to include half the town of Crescent Falls. The yard is packed with people, laughter, and music drifting into the warm June night. "Well, you did a beautiful job," Diana says, squeezing her shoulder. "Though I still think you should have let Luna help more with the decorations." Of course she does. Sage has been organizing everyone else's happiness for so long. She's forgotten what her own looks like. "I need some air," Sage murmurs, already moving toward the wooded path that leads away from the house. Behind her, the party continues without pause. No one notices as she slips into the shadows of the towering pines that border their property. The forest has always been her refuge, the one place where she can think clearly. But tonight, something feels different about the woods. The air is charged with an energy that makes her skin prickle, and the usual chorus of night sounds has gone eerily quiet. Even the wind through the branches seems to whisper warnings she can't quite understand. Sage pauses at the edge of a moonlit clearing, her heart beginning to race for reasons she can't explain. Every instinct tells her to turn back, to return to the safety of the party. Instead, she steps forward. That's when she sees the eyes, silver as starlight, watching her from the darkness between the trees. Predatory, patient, hungry, and somehow impossibly familiar. A low growl rumbles through the clearing, and Sage realizes with crystal clarity that her life, as she's known it, is about to end forever. Because in that moment, something wild and ancient recognizes something equally untamed within her. The hunt has begun. Chapter 1. Sage. "If I could have everyone's attention," Derek calls out, raising his red solo cup above the crowd gathered on the back deck. The conversation's quiet as all eyes turn to him. Tall, confident, with that crooked smile that used to make Sage's heart skip beats. "I want to thank you all for coming to celebrate with us tonight," Derek begins, his free hand finding Luna's waist and pulling her closer. They look perfect together under the twinkling lights, him in his Letterman jacket, her in a flowing sundress that makes her look ethereal. Sage's mother dabs at her eyes with a tissue. "Look how happy they are," Diana whispers to anyone within earshot. "Derek has been the best thing to happen to our Luna." If Sage has to hear one more person talk about how Derek and Luna are meant to be, she might actually scream. She'd known Derek since they were kids, had been there when he'd broken his arm falling out of the old oak tree, had tutored him through chemistry so he could graduate. But Luna had waltzed into Derek's life 6 months ago with her artistic soul and dreamy smile, and suddenly Sage was just Derek's friend instead of whatever she'd hoped they might become. "You know I'm terrible with speeches," Derek continues with a self-deprecating laugh that makes the crowd chuckle. "So I asked Sage to help me write this one. She's always been the smart one between us." Sage's stomach drops. She had helped him write it, of course. 3 days ago, when Derek had called her in a panic, begging for help because he wanted to tell Luna something important in front of everyone. She hadn't realized she was writing her own heartbreak. "Luna," Derek says, turning to face her sister fully. "6 months ago, you walked into my life and changed everything. You made me believe in magic again." The crowd awes appropriately. Sage feels like she's going to be sick. "I know we're young, and I know we're about to go to different colleges in the fall," Derek continues, his voice growing stronger. but I can't imagine my future without you in it. He drops to one knee. Sage's world tilts sideways. This isn't just a graduation speech, it's a proposal. Luna Blackwood, Derek says, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Will you marry me? The backyard erupts in cheers and applause. Luna's hands fly to her mouth, tears streaming down her face as she nods enthusiastically. Derek slides the ring onto her finger and sweeps her into a kiss that makes everyone cheer louder. Sage stands frozen in the chaos, watching her sister get everything she'd ever wanted. The ring catches the light as Luna shows it off to their squealing friends, and Sage recognizes it immediately. It's Derek's grandmother's ring, the one he'd told her about when they were 16, sitting by the lake after his grandmother's funeral. I'm saving it for someone special, he'd said. Someone who gets me, you know? Apparently, he'd found that someone. And it wasn't Sage. She needs to get out of here. Now. Sage. Luna's voice cuts through her thoughts. Her sister is practically floating as she approaches, Derek's arm around her shoulders. Can you believe it? We're engaged. Sage forces a smile that feels like it might crack her face. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you both. You have to be my maid of honor, Luna gushes, grabbing Sage's hands. I can't imagine anyone else standing beside me on the most important day of my life. Of course, because apparently Sage's role in life is to facilitate other people's happiness while her own dreams crumble to dust. I need some air, Sage manages, pulling away from Luna's grip. It's getting pretty crowded out here. Oh, but we need to start planning. Luna calls after her. There's so much to do. Sage doesn't respond. She's already pushing through the crowd, desperate to escape before anyone can see the tears threatening to spill over. The party noise fades behind her as she heads for the tree line, seeking the sanctuary of the forest. The woods are quieter than usual tonight. Even the crickets seem subdued, as if they sense something in the air that makes them cautious. Sage follows the familiar path deeper into the trees, not really paying attention to where she's going. She just needs to walk until the ache in her chest stops feeling like it might kill her. But after 20 minutes of walking, Sage realizes she's lost. The path she's followed hundreds of times seems to have vanished, and the trees around her look unfamiliar in the moonlight. The forest feels different too, wilder, more primitive, more dangerous. A twig snaps somewhere behind her, and Sage freezes. The hair on the back of her neck stands up as she slowly turns around, scanning the shadows between the trees. Hello, she calls out, her voice sounding smaller than she'd intended. Is someone there? Silence answers her, but it's not the comfortable quiet of an empty forest. It's the tense stillness of a predator waiting to strike. Another sound, closer this time. The soft crunch of leaves under heavy paws. Sage's heart starts pounding as she backs away, her eyes searching the darkness. Something is out there, something large enough to make those sounds. A bear maybe, or... Two silver eyes appear in the shadows between the trees. Not the warm brown of a deer or the yellow glow of a raccoon. These eyes are brilliant silver, almost luminescent in the moonlight, and they're watching her with an intelligence that makes her blood run cold. The creature steps forward just enough for her to make out its shape. Massive, easily the size of a small horse, with dark fur that seems to absorb the moonlight. A wolf, but larger than any wolf she's ever seen in nature documentaries. Sage knows she should run. Every survival instinct is screaming at her to turn and flee, to put as much distance as possible between herself and this predator. But something about those silver eyes holds her captive. There's recognition there, as if the wolf knows her, as if it's been waiting for her. The wolf takes another step forward, and Sage can see the powerful muscles rippling under its dark coat. It could kill her in seconds if it wanted to. But instead of aggression, she senses something else in its posture. Longing. You're beautiful, she whispers, the words slipping out before she can stop them. The wolf's ears prick forward at the sound of her voice, and it tilts its massive head as if considering her words. Then slowly it begins to approach. Sage knows she should be terrified. Instead, she feels drawn to the creature, as if an invisible thread is pulling her forward. She takes a tentative step toward the wolf, then another. They meet in the center of the small clearing, predator and prey facing each other in the silver moonlight. Up close, the wolf is even more magnificent. Its fur is so dark it's almost black, with silver highlights that catch the light. And those eyes hold depths of emotion that seem almost human. Without conscious thought, Sage reaches out her hand. The wolf doesn't flinch as her fingers make contact with its fur. If anything, it leans into her touch, a low rumble emanating from its chest that she realizes is a purr of contentment. "Who are you?" she whispers, running her fingers through the thick coat. The wolf's response is to nuzzle against her neck, its warm breath making her shiver. For a moment that feels like an eternity, they stand there together, girl and wolf, connected by something neither of them fully understands. Then voices drift through the trees. Derek's voice calling her name. Her family has noticed she's missing. The wolf jerks back as if burned, its silver eyes meeting hers one last time. In their depths, she sees regret and something that looks suspiciously like an apology. Then it turns and melts back into the shadows, leaving Sage alone in the clearing with nothing but the lingering scent of pine and something wild to prove it had been real at all. "Sage, there you are." Derek emerges from the trees, slightly out of breath. "Everyone's been looking for you." Luna was worried sick. Sage turns to face him, trying to shake off the strange spell that seems to have settled over her. "I just needed some air. I got a little lost." Derek frowns, studying her face in the moonlight. "You look different. Are you okay?" She wants to tell him about the wolf, about the connection she felt, about the way those silver eyes seemed to see straight into her soul. But how could she explain something she doesn't understand herself? "I'm fine," she says instead. "Just tired. It's been a long day." Derek nods, but his expression remains concerned. "Come on, let's get you back to the house. Luna wants to show you something about the wedding planning." As they walk back through the trees, Sage can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. She glances back over her shoulder once, and for just a moment, she thinks she sees a flash of silver eyes in the darkness. But when she looks again, there's nothing there. Chapter 2 Sage. The next morning arrives with the kind of brilliant sunshine that makes everything from the night before feel like a dream. Sage sits at her bedroom window, nursing a cup of coffee and watching the cleanup crew dismantle the party decorations in the backyard below. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw silver eyes watching her from the darkness, felt the warmth of thick fur beneath her fingertips. The logical part of her mind insists it was just a very large dog, maybe a husky that wandered away from its owner. But logic can't explain the intelligence she saw in those eyes, or the way her entire body had hummed with recognition when the creature touched her. A soft knock on her door interrupts her thoughts. "Sage, are you awake?" Luna's voice is bright with excitement. "Come in," Sage calls, not moving from her perch by the window. Luna bounces into the room wearing Derek's oversized t-shirt and a grin that could power half the town. The engagement ring catches the morning light as she gestures animatedly. "I can't believe it's real," Luna gushes, admiring the diamond on her finger. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and find out it was all a dream." Sage forces a smile. "It's beautiful. Derek has good taste." "The best taste," Luna agrees, then flops down on Sage's bed with the boneless grace of someone who's never doubted they deserve happiness. "So, I was thinking we could drive into Portland this afternoon to start looking at wedding magazines. Maybe check out some venues? I know it's short notice, but I want to start planning right away." "Luna, you just got engaged 12 hours ago," Sage points out. "Don't you think you should take some time to actually enjoy being engaged before you start stressing about wedding planning?" Luna waves a dismissive hand. "There's no time to waste. Derek and I want to get married before we leave for college in the fall. That gives us less than 3 months to plan everything." 3 months. Sage feels something cold settle in her stomach. In 3 months, Derek will officially belong to someone else forever. "Besides," Luna continues, oblivious to Sage's internal turmoil, "I've been dreaming about my wedding since I was little. I already know exactly what I want." Of course she does. Luna has always been the type of person who knows exactly what she wants and goes after it without hesitation. Sage, on the other hand, has spent most of her life being practical, responsible, putting other people's needs before her own. "What about you?" Luna asks suddenly. "Any cute guys at the party last night catch your eye?" Sage thinks about silver eyes in the darkness and shivers. "Not really. I wasn't really paying attention to that kind of thing." "Well, you should start," Luna says firmly. "You're going to college in the fall too, and you can't spend your whole freshman year pining after Derek." The words hit like a physical blow. Sage turns from the window to stare at her sister. "What did you say?" Luna has the grace to look embarrassed. I I know you had feelings for him, Sage. It was pretty obvious to everyone. Everyone. Sage's voice comes out smaller than she intended. Mom and Dad, Derek. Luna trails off, biting her lip. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel bad. Sage closes her eyes, mortification washing over her. Derek knew. All this time, he knew how she felt, and he'd chosen Luna anyway. The speeches she'd helped him write, the late-night phone calls when he needed advice about Luna. He'd known exactly what he was putting her through. Sage. Luna's voice is softer now, uncertain. Are you okay? I need some air, Sage says, standing abruptly. I think I'll go for a walk. But what about the wedding planning? Luna calls after her as Sage heads for the door. Later, Sage throws over her shoulder. We can do it later. She's halfway down the stairs when she nearly collides with Derek, who's carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing yesterday's clothes. He looks like he spent the night on their couch, which he probably did. Morning, Sage, he says with that easy smile that used to make her stomach flutter. Now it just makes her feel hollow. Luna's parents said I could crash here. Hope that's okay. It's fine, Sage says, not meeting his eyes. Luna's upstairs if you're looking for her. She tries to push past him, but Derek catches her arm gently. Hey, are you all right? You seemed kind of upset last night. Sage looks down at his hand on her arm and feels nothing. No electric thrill, no racing pulse. Just the warm touch of someone who's been her friend for years and apparently sees her as nothing more. I'm fine, she says, pulling away. Just tired. Derek studies her face with the same concerned expression he's worn since they were kids. You know you can talk to me, right? We're friends, Sage. We've always been friends. Friends. There it is, the word that's defined their entire relationship. The word that means he's never seen her as anything more than Derek's reliable sidekick. Right, Sage says quietly. Friends. She leaves him standing in the hallway and heads for the back door, desperate to escape the suffocating feeling of being trapped in a life that no longer fits. The forest calls to her again, just like it did last night. But this time, instead of seeking refuge from heartbreak, she's drawn by something else. A pull she can't explain, like an invisible thread tugging at her consciousness. She follows a different path this time, one that leads deeper into the woods than she's ever gone before. The trees here are older, their trunks massive and gnarled with age. The canopy is so thick that only occasional shafts of sunlight penetrate to the forest floor. It should feel ominous, but instead, Sage feels more at peace than she has in months. She's been walking for maybe half an hour when she catches a familiar scent on the breeze. Pine and earth and something wild that makes her pulse quicken. The same scent she'd noticed last night when the wolf had nuzzled against her neck. Sage stops walking and closes her eyes, breathing deeply. The scent is stronger here, as if she's getting closer to its source. When she opens her eyes, she's not surprised to see the wolf standing about 20 feet away, watching her with those incredible silver eyes. In the daylight, it's even more magnificent than she remembered. Its coat is indeed black with silver highlights, and it's easily the largest wolf she's ever seen. But there's something almost human in the way it holds itself, in the intelligence gleaming in its gaze. I was hoping I'd see you again, Sage says softly. The wolf tilts its head, as if considering her words. Then slowly it begins to approach. This time Sage doesn't hesitate. She sits down cross-legged on the forest floor, making herself less threatening. The wolf comes closer, close enough that she can see the individual hairs in its thick coat, close enough to count the flecks of gold in its silver eyes. Without warning, the wolf lies down beside her, resting its massive head in her lap. The contact sends a jolt of something electric through Sage's entire body. She gasps, her hands automatically moving to stroke the wolf's fur. It's even softer than she remembered, like touching liquid silver. Who are you? She whispers, the same question she'd asked last night. The wolf's response is to nuzzle deeper into her lap, a rumble of contentment vibrating through its chest. Sage has never felt anything like this sense of completeness, of rightness, as if this is exactly where she's supposed to be. They sit like that for what feels like hours, but is probably only minutes. Sage loses herself in the rhythm of stroking the wolf's fur, in the warmth of its body against hers. For the first time since Derek's proposal, the ache in her chest eases. But then the sound of voices drifts through the trees, and the wolf's head snaps up alertly. Sage recognizes Derek's voice calling her name, probably sent by Luna to find her for wedding planning. The wolf looks at her with what she swears is regret, then rises gracefully to its feet. It nuzzles her cheek once, gently, then turns and disappears into the deeper woods. Sage sits there for a moment longer, her skin still tingling from the wolf's touch. She can hear Derek getting closer, crashing through the underbrush with all the subtlety of a bulldozer. "Sage, there you are." Derek emerges from the trees, slightly out of breath. "Luna sent me to find you. She's got wedding magazines spread all over the kitchen table, and she needs your help choosing between venues." Sage nods absently, her attention still focused on the spot where the wolf disappeared. She can smell its lingering scent in the air, wild and intoxicating. "Are you listening to me?" Derek asks, following her gaze into the woods. "What are you looking at?" "Nothing," Sage says, standing and brushing dirt off her jeans. "Just thought I heard something." As they walk back toward the house, Derek chatters about wedding plans and college preparations, but Sage barely hears him. Her mind is consumed with silver eyes and soft fur, and the feeling that something momentous is about to change in her life. She just doesn't know what yet. But as they reach the edge of the forest, Sage turns back once more. And there, barely visible in the shadows between the trees, she sees the wolf watching their retreat. Waiting. Chapter 3, The Wolf. The wolf watches from the shadows as she disappears with the male, every instinct screaming at him to follow, to tear the intruder away from what belongs to him. His muscles bunch beneath his dark coat, claws digging into the earth as he fights the urge to hunt. She touched him, let him rest against her warmth, her fingers threading through his fur like she was born to do it. Her scent still clings to his coat, honeysuckle and summer rain, with an underlying sweetness that calls to something primal in his blood. Mine, the wolf thinks with absolute certainty. She is mine. But the human part of him, the part that remembers civilization and consequences, holds him back. She doesn't understand what she's dealing with. Doesn't know that her gentle touches are awakening something that has slept for centuries, something that could destroy them both. The wolf paces restlessly through the deep woods, following paths known only to his kind. His territory spans for miles, from the heart of the forest to the edges of the human town. He knows every tree, every stream, every scent that belongs and every one that doesn't. The male's scent doesn't belong. It carries the stench of possession, of someone who believes he has a claim on what is not his to take. The wolf's lips pull back in a silent snarl at the memory. He needs to hunt, needs to channel this restless energy into something productive before it consumes him entirely. The deer are plentiful this time of year, fat and slow from the summer feeding. Easy prey. But as he stalks through the underbrush, it's not deer he's thinking about. It's silver eyes that reflect moonlight and gentle hands that don't fear his touch. It's the way she spoke to him like he was more than just a wild animal, like she recognized something human in his gaze. Because there is something human in him. Has been, ever since the curse took hold 3 centuries ago. The wolf's hunt is successful. A large buck that will feed him for days. But as he drags his prize to the small cabin hidden deep in the woods, his thoughts remain consumed by the girl with the gentle touch. He shouldn't go back to her. Every rational part of him knows this. She's human, fragile, completely unaware of the supernatural world that exists alongside her own. Getting closer to her will only lead to pain for them both. But as night falls and the moon rises full and silver above the tree line, the wolf finds himself drawn back toward the edges of human territory. Back toward her. Her house sits on the edge of town, backing up to the forest where they first met. It's a modest 2-story home with warm yellow light spilling from the windows. Through the glass, he can see her moving around what must be the kitchen, helping the older woman who shares her scent. Her mother, he realizes. The wolf settles into the shadows of the tree line, content for now to simply watch, to make sure she's safe, to breathe in the faint traces of her scent that drift on the evening breeze. He's been there for perhaps an hour when movement in an upstairs window catches his attention. She appears behind the glass, silhouetted against the soft glow of her bedroom lamp. For a moment, she stands perfectly still, and the wolf has the strangest sensation that she's looking directly at him. Then she raises her hand and presses it against the window, fingers splayed against the glass. The gesture sends a jolt through the wolf's entire being. It's not possible that she can see him. He's too far away, too well hidden in the darkness. But something in her posture, in the way she holds herself so still, suggests she knows he's there. Knows and isn't afraid. The wolf rises from his hiding place and takes a step forward, then another. He should stay hidden, should maintain the boundary between their worlds. But that small gesture, that hand against the glass, calls to him like a siren song. He moves closer to the house, staying in the shadows but allowing himself to be seen if she's truly watching for him. The girl, Sage, he heard the male call her, doesn't move from her position at the window. For long minutes, they regard each other across the distance between her world and his. The wolf feels something shifting in his chest, some deep recognition that goes beyond mere attraction. She's important, this girl. Important in a way that terrifies him. A car door slams in the driveway, breaking the spell. The wolf melts back into the forest as voices drift from the front of the house. The male's voice, rough with concern. I'm worried about her, Mrs. Blackwood. She's been acting strange since the party. Distracted, like she's not really here. Sage has always been the sensitive one, comes the mother's voice. She just needs time to adjust to all these changes. Luna's engagement, college in the fall, it's a lot for someone her age. The wolf's ears prick forward at the mention of Sage's name. So that's what she's called. It suits her. Something natural and wild, like the herb that grows in the forest clearings. Maybe I should talk to her, the male says. We've always been close. She might open up to me about what's bothering her. Close. The word sends a spike of jealousy through the wolf's chest. He doesn't like the familiarity in the male's voice when he speaks of Sage. Doesn't like the implication that they share some special bond. The front door opens and closes, followed by the sound of footsteps on the stairs. The wolf waits, watching the windows, until he sees Sage's silhouette appear in what must be a downstairs room. The male is with her, standing too close, speaking in low tones that carry the cadence of intimacy. The wolf's vision goes red around the edges. His lips pull back in a silent snarl as he watches the male reach out to touch Sage's shoulder. She doesn't pull away, doesn't seem to mind the contact. But then she steps back, putting distance between them, and the wolf allows himself to breathe again. He shouldn't be here. Shouldn't be watching her like this, learning the rhythms of her life, memorizing the way she moves through her human world. It's a violation of the natural order, a dangerous blurring of the lines that have kept his kind hidden for centuries. But he can't seem to make himself leave. As if sensing his presence, Sage suddenly turns toward the window. Her eyes scan the darkness beyond the glass, searching for something she can't quite name. The wolf holds perfectly still, but he knows she feels him there. Knows because he can sense her awareness like a physical touch. The male notices her distraction and follows her gaze to the window. What is it? Did you see something? Nothing, Sage says quickly, turning away from the glass. Just thought I heard something outside. But the wolf sees the way her hand trembles slightly as she pulls the curtains closed. Sees the flush that colors her cheeks and the way her breathing quickens. She knows he's there. And more than that, she wants him to be. The realization should terrify him. Instead, it fills him with a dangerous sense of possibility. For the first time in 3 centuries, someone has looked at him and seen not a monster, but something worth reaching for. It's a foolish hope, a dangerous one. But as the wolf settles back into the shadows to keep his silent vigil, he allows himself to imagine what it might be like to bridge the gap between their worlds, to claim what his soul recognizes as his. The night stretches on, and the wolf remains, watching over the girl who has captured something he thought was lost forever, his heart. Chapter 4, Sage. 3 days pass in a blur of wedding preparations and sleepless nights. Sage finds herself going through the motions of normal life, helping Luna choose between ivory and cream for the color scheme, addressing save-the-date cards, listening to Derek's excited rambling about their future together, while her mind remains consumed with silver eyes and midnight encounters. She hasn't seen the wolf since that morning in the forest, but she feels its presence constantly. Sometimes she catches a glimpse of movement in her peripheral vision when she's near the tree line. Other times she wakes in the middle of the night with the absolute certainty that something is watching her window. Sage, are you even listening to me? Luna's voice cuts through her distraction. They're sitting in the living room, surrounded by wedding magazines and fabric samples, while Luna holds up 2 nearly identical white flowers. Sorry, Sage says, forcing herself to focus. What were you asking? Peonies or garden roses for the bouquet? Luna repeats with barely concealed impatience. I need to give the florist an answer today. Sage studies the flowers, but they blur together in her tired vision. They're both beautiful. I'm sure whatever you choose will be perfect. Luna sets down the flowers and fixes her with a sharp look. Okay, what's going on with you? You've been acting weird ever since the engagement party. Are you that upset about Derek and me? The question catches Sage off guard. She opens her mouth to deny it, to give Luna some excuse about being tired or stressed about college, but the words stuck in her throat. Because the truth is, she's barely thought about Derek at all in the past 3 days. The ache in her chest that had been her constant companion for months has faded to a dull background noise, overshadowed by something much more intense and confusing. It's not about Derek, Sage says finally, and realizes it's true. Luna's expression softens with relief. Then what is it? You know you can talk to me, right? We're sisters. Sisters. Sage looks at Luna, beautiful, confident Luna who has never doubted her place in the world, and wonders how to explain that she feels like she's standing on the edge of something vast and unknown, that every instinct in her body is telling her to run toward it instead of away. I've just been having strange dreams, Sage says, settling on a partial truth. Really vivid ones. They're making it hard to concentrate. What kind of dreams? Luna asks, leaning forward with interest. Sage hesitates. How can she explain dreams where she's running through the forest on 4 legs, where silver moonlight turns her skin to fur, where she can smell emotions and hear heartbeats from miles away? Just weird dreams about animals, she says lamely. Luna laughs. You probably just need more sleep. All this wedding stress is getting to everyone. Mom's been having nightmares about the cake falling over. Before Sage can respond, Derek appears in the doorway carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. For my beautiful fiancé, he says with a grin, presenting them to Luna with a theatrical bow. Luna squeals with delight, accepting the flowers and pulling Derek down for a kiss that makes Sage look away. Not because it hurts anymore, but because watching them feels like intruding on something private. They're gorgeous, Luna gushes, burying her face in the petals. Where did you find them? There's this amazing meadow about a mile into the forest, Derek says, settling onto the couch beside Luna. I've never seen flowers like these before. They almost seem to glow in the sunlight. Sage's attention snaps to him. You went into the forest? How far? Derek shrugs. Not that far. Just followed an old deer trail I found. Why? It's just. Sage struggles to find words for the unease creeping up her spine. Those woods can be dangerous. There are wild animals out there. What kind of wild animals? Luna asks with amusement. This is Maine, not Alaska. The most dangerous thing out there is probably a raccoon with rabies. Derek laughs. Sage is right to be cautious, though. I did see some pretty big tracks while I was out there. Definitely not from a raccoon. What kind of tracks? Sage asks, her pulse quickening. Wolf tracks, I think. Really big ones. Probably just a large dog, but still. Derek pulls out his phone and shows them a photo of paw prints in the mud. See? Massive. Sage stares at the image, recognizing the distinctive shape immediately. Those are definitely the wolf's tracks. Her wolf, she thinks before she can stop herself. You shouldn't go back there alone, she says, more sharply than she intended. If there really is a wolf, it could be dangerous. Derek raises an eyebrow at her tone. Since when are you such a wilderness expert? You used to be afraid of camping because of the bugs. Heat creeps up Sage's neck. She can't explain why the thought of Derek wandering through the forest fills her with such dread. Why every protective instinct in her body is screaming warnings. I just think we should be careful, she says quietly. Well, I think it's romantic, Luna declares, sniffing the wildflowers again. Derek braving the wilderness to bring me flowers. Very manly and outdoorsy. Derek preens at the praise, and Sage has to resist the urge to roll her eyes. If he only knew what was really out there in those woods, how utterly unprepared he'd be to face it. The thought stops her cold. Face what exactly? She's seen the wolf twice now, and both times it had been gentle, almost protective. Why is she so certain Derek would be in danger? And why does the idea of him being hurt fill her with such fierce primal anger? I should get going, Derek says, checking his watch. I promised my mom I'd help her move some boxes before dinner. He kisses Luna goodbye and heads for the door, pausing to squeeze Sage's shoulder as he passes. Try to get some sleep, okay? You look exhausted. After he leaves, Luna turns to Sage with a knowing look. You're worried about him. What? Derek. You're worried about him going into the woods alone. That's sweet, Sage, but you don't need to feel responsible for him anymore. I'm going to take good care of him. Sage wants to protest, to explain that her concern has nothing to do with lingering romantic feelings. But how can she tell Luna that her worry feels less like protectiveness and more like territoriality? Like the thought of Derek in her wolf's domain triggers some deep, possessive instinct she doesn't understand? You're right, Sage says instead. I'm just being silly. But as the afternoon wears on and Luna chatters about wedding details, Sage finds herself drawn again and again to the window. The forest calls to her with increasing urgency, and she knows with absolute certainty that she needs to go back. She needs to find the wolf before Derek does. That evening, after Luna and their parents have gone to bed, Sage slips out of the house and into the night. The forest welcomes her like an old friend, the familiar paths seeming to guide her feet without conscious thought. She doesn't have to search long. The wolf is waiting for her in the same clearing where they first met, its silver eyes reflecting the moonlight like twin stars. I was hoping you'd come, Sage whispers, settling onto the ground beside the massive creature. The wolf moves closer, pressing its warm flank against her side. The contact sends that now familiar electric thrill through her body, but underneath it, she senses something else. Tension. Worry. Derek was in your territory today, she says, running her fingers through the wolf's thick fur. He brought Luna flowers from the meadow. The wolf's ears flatten slightly, and a low rumble emanates from its chest. Not quite a growl, but close. He doesn't mean any harm, Sage continues. He's just human. He doesn't understand that this place belongs to you. The wolf turns its great head to look at her, and in its silver gaze she sees intelligence that takes her breath away. It understands every word she's saying. More than that, it's trying to communicate something back to her. Sage closes her eyes and lets herself sink into the sensation of the wolf's presence. There's something there, just beyond the edge of her consciousness. A feeling, a knowing that doesn't come through words, but through something deeper. Danger. The wolf is trying to warn her about danger. But not from Derek. For Derek. What is it? Sage asks, opening her eyes to meet the wolf's intense gaze. What are you trying to tell me? The wolf doesn't answer. Can't answer, she reminds herself, because it's an animal. But as it nuzzles against her neck, breathing in her scent, Sage feels a bone-deep certainty that something is coming. Something that will change everything. And somehow, impossibly, she knows that when it does, she'll have to choose between the world she's always known and the wild, dangerous call of something she's only just beginning to understand. Chapter 5, Sage. The warning comes to Sage in a dream 3 nights later, but it feels more real than any dream she's ever had. She's running through the forest on 4 legs, her paws silent against the moss-covered ground. The world around her is painted in silver and shadow, but she can see everything with crystal clarity. The individual leaves on the trees, the tiny movements of night creatures in the underbrush, the intricate patterns of moonlight filtering through the canopy. But it's the scents that overwhelm her. She can smell everything. The earthy richness of decomposing leaves, the green vitality of growing things, the musk of the various animals that call these woods home. And underneath it all, a scent that makes her hackles rise with instinctive dread. Something wrong. Something that doesn't belong. Sage follows the scent deeper into the forest, her dream body moving with a grace and power she's never possessed in waking life. The trail leads her to a part of the woods she's never seen before, where the trees grow so thick their branches intertwine overhead like a cathedral ceiling. And there, in a clearing surrounded by ancient oaks, she sees them. They look like wolves at first glance, but there's something off about their proportions, something that makes Sage's blood run cold. They're too large, their limbs too long, their eyes reflecting not silver moonlight, but an unnatural golden glow that speaks of hunger and malice. Not wolves. Wrong wolves. And they're tracking something. Someone. Sage wakes with a gasp, her heart hammering against her ribs. The dream lingers with unusual clarity, the scents and sounds still vivid in her memory. But more than that, there's a certainty settling in her chest that this wasn't just a dream. It was a warning. She glances at her bedside clock, 3:17 a.m. The house is silent around her, but Sage knows with absolute certainty that she won't be able to fall back asleep. Not when every instinct in her body is screaming that something is terribly wrong. Sage slips out of bed and moves to her window, peering out into the darkness beyond. The forest looks peaceful enough, but she can feel tension in the air like the charged silence before a thunderstorm. That's when she sees the flash of silver eyes in the tree line. The wolf stands at the very edge of the forest, its massive form barely visible in the shadows. But even from this distance, Sage can sense its agitation. It paces back and forth, never taking its gaze from her window. It's trying to tell her something, trying to warn her, just like in the dream. Without conscious thought, Sage finds herself dressing quickly and slipping out of the house. The night air is cool against her skin as she crosses the backyard, but she barely notices the chill. All her attention is focused on the wolf, which has stopped pacing and now stands perfectly still, watching her approach. "What is it?" she whispers as she reaches the edge of the forest. "What's wrong?" The wolf doesn't approach her this time. Instead, it turns and looks deeper into the woods, then back at her. The message is clear: follow me. Sage hesitates only briefly. Every rational part of her mind is screaming that following a wild animal into the forest in the middle of the night is the height of stupidity. But the dream is still fresh in her memory, along with the bone-deep certainty that something dangerous is coming. "Lead the way," she says quietly. The wolf turns and heads into the forest at a pace just slow enough for her to follow. They move deeper into the woods than Sage has ever gone, along paths that seem to exist only for creatures who know where to look. The darkness doesn't seem as absolute as it should. Somehow, she can see well enough to avoid roots and rocks, to duck under low-hanging branches. They walk for what feels like hours but is probably only 30 minutes before the wolf finally stops. They're standing at the edge of a clearing Sage recognizes from her dream. The cathedral of intertwined branches overhead, the circle of ancient oaks. And there, in the center of the clearing, is evidence that her dream was more than just her imagination. The ground is torn up as if by massive claws. Trees bear fresh gouges in their bark, some so deep they've reached the heartwood. And everywhere is that wrong scent from her dream, acrid and unnatural, making her nose wrinkle with instinctive revulsion. "They were here," Sage breathes, moving closer to examine the damage. "The not wolves from my dream. They were really here." A low whine draws her attention back to the wolf. It's watching her with those incredible silver eyes, and in their depths she sees something that stops her cold. Recognition. Not just of her, but of what she's saying. The wolf understands her, because it shared the dream with her. The realization hits Sage like a physical blow. Somehow, impossibly, she and the wolf are connected in a way that goes beyond the physical world. Connected enough to share dreams, to communicate across the barriers of species. "What were those things?" she asks, though she's not entirely sure she wants to know the answer. The wolf approaches her slowly, and when it's close enough, it does something that takes her breath away. It shifts its weight and very deliberately looks toward the path that leads back to town, back toward her house, back toward her family. Ice floods Sage's veins as understanding dawns. Those creatures in the dream, those wrong wolves with their golden eyes and predatory grace, they weren't just passing through the forest. They were hunting, and their prey is in Crescent Falls. "We have to warn them," Sage says, already turning back toward the path. "We have to." A howl cuts through the night, distant but unmistakably coming from the direction of town. It's answered by another, then another, until the air fills with a chorus of voices that makes Sage's skin crawl. They're not warning howls. They're hunting calls. The wolf is beside her in an instant, its massive form pressing against her side. When she looks down at it, she sees something that terrifies her more than the howls, more than the torn-up clearing, more than the wrongness permeating the forest. She sees fear in those silver eyes. Whatever those creatures are, even her wolf, this magnificent predator who fears nothing, is afraid of them. "What do they want?" Sage whispers. The wolf looks at her for a long moment, and somehow, without words, she understands. They want her. Another howl echoes through the night, closer this time. Much closer. "We need to go," Sage says, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "We need to get back to." Golden eyes appear in the darkness at the far end of the clearing. Then more. And more. The wrong wolves have found them. Sage's wolf immediately moves between her and the approaching threat, hackles raised, a growl rumbling from deep in its chest. But Sage can see the tension in its posture, the way its muscles bunch with readiness to run rather than fight. They're outnumbered. Badly. The first of the creatures steps into the moonlight, and Sage has to bite back a scream. Up close, it's even more wrong than in her dream. too long in the limbs, too sharp in the teeth, with proportions that hurt to look at directly. Its golden eyes fix on her with an intelligence that's somehow more terrifying than simple animal hunger. It knows exactly what it's looking for. And it's found her. "Hello, little wolf," it says, and the fact that it can speak nearly sends Sage to her knees in shock. Its voice is like gravel scraping against stone. "We've been looking for you." Chapter 6, Sage. Time slows to a crawl as the creature's words sink in. Little wolf. It called her little wolf, as if it knows something about her that she doesn't know about herself. Sage's wolf, her protector, she realizes with startling clarity, places itself firmly between her and the speaking monster. The growl emanating from its chest is unlike anything she's heard before, deeper and more threatening than any sound a natural animal should be able to make. "Stay back," Sage whispers, though she's not sure if she's talking to the creatures or to herself. The speaking not-wolf tilts its malformed head, golden eyes glinting with amusement. "Oh, little one, you still don't understand what you are, do you?" Its lips pull back in what might be a smile if smiles were made of nightmares. How deliciously naive. More of the creatures emerge from the shadows, forming a loose circle around the clearing. Sage counts at least 6, maybe 7, all wrong in the same bone-deep way as their leader. Too long, too sharp, too hungry. "What do you want?" Sage asks, surprised by how steady her voice sounds despite the terror clawing at her throat. "Want?" The creature laughs, a sound like glass breaking. "We want what was promised to us 3 centuries ago. What was taken from us by treachery and lies." 3 centuries. The same time frame her wolf had mentioned in her dreams, though she can't remember when or how she learned that detail. Sage's protector takes a step forward, and every muscle in its body coils with readiness to spring. The not-wolves respond in kind, their own bodies shifting into attack positions. The air in the clearing becomes electric with the promise of violence. "Run," her wolf says. Sage startles. The word didn't come through her ears. It resonated directly in her mind, clear as if someone had spoken aloud. "What?" she begins, but the wolf's mental voice cuts her off. "Run. Now. Don't look back." Before Sage can protest, before she can demand explanations or argue that she won't leave without him, chaos erupts. Her wolf launches himself at the lead creature with devastating speed and power. The two collide in a snarling mass of fur and claws, rolling across the torn earth. The other not-wolves converge immediately, but Sage's protector is faster, stronger, more skilled than their unnatural forms suggest they should be. But there are too many of them. "Run." The mental command hits her like a physical blow, carrying with it an authority that bypasses her conscious mind and speaks directly to her survival instincts. Sage runs. She crashes through the forest with no thought for stealth or safety, branches tearing at her clothes and scratching her face. Behind her, the sounds of the battle fade but don't disappear entirely. Snarls, yelps, the wet sound of claws meeting flesh. Every instinct screams at her to go back, to help somehow, but that mental voice had carried such absolute authority that her body won't obey her desire to turn around. She doesn't stop running until she bursts from the tree line into her own backyard, chest heaving and legs shaking with exhaustion. The house is dark and quiet, her family still safely asleep, unaware that a battle for her life just played out in the forest behind their home. Sage stumbles up the back steps and into the kitchen, her hands trembling as she locks the door behind her. Only then does she allow herself to think about what just happened. The creatures knew her, knew what she was, even though she doesn't know herself. And they'd been hunting her specifically, drawn by something she doesn't understand. But more terrifying than their interest in her is the silence from the forest now. No more sounds of battle. No mental voice reassuring her that her protector is safe. What if he's hurt? What if those things killed him while she ran away like a coward? The thought sends her back toward the door, but before she can unlock it, a hand falls on her shoulder. "Sage, what are you doing down here?" Sage spins around to find Derek standing in the kitchen doorway, his hair mussed from sleep and concern creasing his features. He's wearing pajama pants and a t-shirt, looking rumpled and confused. "Derek," her voice comes out as a croak. "What are you doing here?" "I'm staying over, remember? Luna, and I wanted to get an early start on venue shopping tomorrow." His frown deepens as he takes in her appearance. "You look like you've been wrestling with a bear. What happened?" Sage becomes aware of how she must look, scratched, disheveled, with leaves in her hair and dirt on her clothes. Her mind races for an explanation that won't make Derek think she's lost her mind. "I couldn't sleep," she says finally. "Went for a walk in the garden and got a little turned around in the dark." Derek's expression doesn't change, but something shifts in his eyes. "The garden, huh? In the middle of the night." "Insomnia," Sage says weakly. "Right." Derek moves closer, and Sage notices he's studying her face intently. "Sage, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." A chill runs down her spine that has nothing to do with the night air. "What? Have you been going into the forest alone?" The question hits her like a slap. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I've been asking around town, and apparently there have been some incidents lately. People hearing strange howls at night. Some hikers found tracks that don't match any known animals in the area." Derek's voice is carefully neutral, but his eyes never leave her face. "The kind of tracks I photographed the other day." Sage's mouth goes dry. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe you should stay away from the woods for a while. Until whatever's out there moves on." If only it were that simple. If only she could just avoid the forest and pretend none of this is happening. But those creatures know where she lives now. They know what she is, even if she doesn't. And they won't stop hunting her just because she stays away from the trees. "Derek," she begins, then stops. How can she possibly explain any of this without sounding insane? "I'm worried about you," he continues. "You've been acting strange ever since the engagement party. Distracted, jumpy. And now I find you sneaking around in the middle of the night, looking like you've been in a fight." "I haven't been in a fight," Sage protests, though the words feel hollow even to her. "Haven't you?" Derek steps closer. Close enough that she can see the genuine concern in his eyes. "Sage, whatever's going on, you can trust me. We've been friends for years. There's nothing you could tell me that would change that." The sincerity in his voice nearly breaks her resolve. She wants to tell him everything, about the wolf, about the connection she feels, about the creatures hunting her. She wants to collapse into the safety of his familiar friendship and let someone else worry about supernatural threats and ancient curses. But before she can open her mouth, a howl echoes through the night. Not from the forest this time, but closer, much closer. Derek's head snaps toward the sound, his body tensing with alarm. What the hell was that? Another howl answers the first, then another. The sounds are coming from different directions, surrounding the house. Sage's blood turns to ice as she recognizes the voices. The Knot Wolves have followed her home. "Derek," she says urgently, grabbing his arm. "We need to get upstairs. We need to wake my family and get everyone away from the windows." "Sage, what?" A shape flashes past the kitchen window, too fast and too large to be natural. Derek catches the movement in his peripheral vision and goes very still. "Sage," he says quietly, "what exactly is out there?" Before she can answer, something slams into the back door with enough force to rattle the entire frame. The deadbolt holds, but Sage can hear claws scraping against wood, testing for weaknesses. "Upstairs," she hisses, pulling Derek toward the stairs. Now, as they reach the second floor, Sage's mother appears in the hallway, tying her robe around her waist. "What's all that noise? Is everything all right?" "Mom, we need to." The sound of breaking glass cuts her off. Something has gotten inside the house. Chapter 7. The Wolf. Pain lances through the wolf's shoulder as claws rake across muscle and sinew, but he doesn't slow his assault. The Knot Wolves are stronger than they should be, faster than nature intended. But he has something they lack: 3 centuries of experience and the desperate fury of a protector defending his mate. His mate. The thought sends fresh strength surging through his limbs as he tears the throat from one of the creatures. Its golden eyes dim as it falls, black ichor pooling beneath its malformed body. But there are still too many of them. Another set of claws catches him across the ribs, sending him stumbling. The Knot Wolves press their advantage, circling like the unnatural predators they are. Their leader, the one who spoke to Sage with such casual menace, watches from the edge of the fray with those terrible golden eyes. "Still protecting the little wolf, are we?" it asks conversationally, as if they're discussing the weather instead of a battle to the death. How noble. How utterly pointless. The wolf snarls in response, positioning himself between the creatures and the path Sage took when she fled. He won't let them follow her. Won't let them touch her. "She doesn't even know what she is," the leader continues, tilting its head with mock sympathy. "Doesn't understand the power sleeping in her blood. Such a waste. Power. The word confirms what the wolf has suspected since their first meeting, when Sage's touch had sent electricity racing through his entire being. She's not fully human, hasn't been since birth. The question is whether she'll awaken to her true nature in time to save herself, or whether she'll die as ignorant as she lived. But you know, don't you? The creature's smile reveals too many teeth, all of them sharp. You can smell it on her. The wolf blood. Diluted, perhaps, hidden beneath human flesh, but there nonetheless. The wolf's lips pull back in a silent snarl. These abominations will not have her. He'll die before he lets them touch a single hair on her head. Such devotion, the leader muses. It's almost touching, but ultimately meaningless. You cannot protect her from what she is, any more than you could protect the others. Others. The word hits the wolf like a physical blow. They're talking about the bloodline, about the other descendants of his kind who have been hunted and killed over the centuries. Sage isn't the first they've come for, but she'll be the last he fails to protect. The wolf feints left, then launches himself at the creature closest to Sage's escape route. His jaws close around its throat before it can react, and he shakes it like a rag doll until something vital snaps. 2 down. But even as the second body hits the ground, pain explodes through his left hind leg. One of the remaining not wolves has gotten behind him, its claws sinking deep into muscle and tendon. The wolf's leg gives out, sending him crashing to the forest floor. Enough playing, the leader says, its voice carrying a note of boredom. Kill him and let's collect what we came for. The remaining creatures close in for the kill, but before they can strike, a new sound cuts through the night air. A howl, pure and wild and filled with such raw fury that even the not wolves pause. The wolf's heart leaps with impossible hope, but when he turns toward the sound, what he sees defies all logic. Sage stands at the edge of the clearing, but she's wrong. Her human form flickers like a mirage, overlaid with something else. Something wild. Her eyes, normally warm brown, now gleam with silver light that matches his own. Let him go. Her voice carries harmonics that shouldn't exist in a human throat, undertones of growl and snarl that speak directly to the primitive parts of the brain that remember when humanity was prey. The not wolves recoil instinctively, their leader's golden eyes widening with something that might be surprise. Impossible, it hisses. The bloodline was broken. We made sure of it. Apparently, Sage says, taking a step into the clearing, you were wrong. As she moves, her form continues to shift and flicker. One moment she's fully human, the next something lupin ghosts beneath her skin. The wolf has never seen anything like it. A partial transformation, as if she's caught between 2 forms and can't decide which to embrace. You're untrained, the leader says, regaining its composure. Untested. You don't even know what you're trying to become. Maybe not, Sage admits, silver light pulsing in her eyes. But I know what you are, and I know you don't belong here. The power radiating from her is raw, uncontrolled, but undeniably real. The wolf can feel it in his bones, a resonance that calls to his own lupin nature. She is like him, has always been like him, just sleeping beneath human flesh. Now she's waking up. The wolf blood runs true after all, the leader muses, circling slowly around the edge of the clearing. How delightful. We were beginning to think the old bloodlines had died out entirely. What do you want with me? Sage demands, her flickering form taking another step toward the wolf. What's so important about my blood? Want? The creature laughs that glass-breaking sound again. Child, we want what was stolen from us 3 centuries ago. We want the power that should have been ours by right. I don't understand. Of course you don't. No one bothered to tell you the truth, did they? About what you are, about why your kind went into hiding. The leader's eyes gleam with malicious pleasure. Shall I enlighten you? Don't listen to it. The wolf manages to project telepathically, struggling to rise despite his injured leg. Don't let it distract you. But Sage doesn't seem to hear him. Her attention is fixed entirely on the creature, silver eyes burning with the need to understand. 3 centuries ago, the leader begins, there was a war between the pure-blooded wolves and the half-breeds. Your ancestors thought they could live in harmony with humanity, could dilute their power with human weakness. We disagreed. You're talking about genocide, Sage says quietly. We're talking about evolution, about purifying the bloodline and returning wolf kind to its rightful place as apex predator. The creature's smile widens. But a few of the half-breeds escaped our culling, went into hiding. bred with humans until their wolf nature was so diluted it barely existed. Until now, the leader agrees. You see, little wolf, you represent something we thought extinct. The last of the true bloodline, awakened after generations of dormancy. Your power, properly harvested, could restore what was lost. The wolf finally manages to regain his feet, fury giving him strength despite his injuries. You want to kill her? Kill her. The creature looks genuinely offended. Perish the thought. We want to drain her power, certainly. Extract every drop of that precious bloodline magic. But the process doesn't have to be fatal. Its smile suggests otherwise. She'll simply be diminished afterward, fully human, no longer a threat to the natural order. Sage's flickering form solidifies as rage overtakes uncertainty. You want to steal what I am. We want to take back what should never have been yours in the first place. The power radiating from Sage suddenly spikes, wild and uncontrolled. The knot wolves take an involuntary step back as silver light blazes from her eyes. Then you can try, she snarls, and for the first time, the wolf hears his own wild nature echoed in her voice. The creature's attack is won, but they're too late. Sage's transformation finally completes, her human form melting away to reveal the silver-furred wolf that was always hidden beneath. She's magnificent, smaller than the wolf but faster, her movements liquid grace as she tears into their attackers. Together, they fight as if they've been partners for centuries instead of strangers who met days ago. But even working together, they're still outnumbered. Just as the wolf begins to fear they won't survive this fight, new howls echo through the forest. Not the wrong voices of the knot wolves, but the pure calls of his own kind. The pack has come. Chapter 8 Sage. The world looks different through wolf eyes. Colors are muted but scents are overwhelming. She can smell fear, blood, rage, and something else beneath it all. Something that smells like home, like safety, like belonging. The scent is coming from her protector, her mate, she realizes with startling clarity. Mate. The word resonates through her consciousness with absolute certainty. This magnificent dark wolf who has been watching over her, protecting her, is her destined partner. She's known it since their first meeting, even if she couldn't put a name to the feeling. But there's no time to explore this revelation. The knot wolves are regrouping, their leader's golden eyes blazing with fury at her transformation. Impossible, it snarls. The bloodline was severed. We destroyed the family lines ourselves. Apparently you missed one, Sage replies, shocked to discover she can speak even in wolf form. Her voice carries harmonics of growl and rumble that vibrate through her chest. The lead creature's expression shifts from fury to calculating hunger. No matter. One little half-breed cannot stand against us, awakened or not. But even as it speaks, the sounds of approaching wolves grow louder. Her mate. She needs to learn his name, she realizes. Lifts his muzzle and releases a howl that seems to shake the very trees. It's answered immediately by a chorus of voices, wild and free and filled with protective fury. The pack comes, her mate says, his mental voice stronger now that she's in her true form. Hold them off just a little longer. The first of the reinforcements bursts into the clearing, a massive gray wolf with yellow eyes and scars across his muzzle. He's followed by others, a sleek brown female, a russet-colored male, a white wolf nearly as large as her mate. They move with military precision, surrounding the remaining knot wolves with practiced efficiency. Alexander, the scarred gray wolf says, inclining his head toward Sage's mate. We came as soon as we heard the call. Alexander. Her mate's name is Alexander. It suits him, strong, noble, ancient. Marcus, Alexander replies with obvious relief. These abominations seek to harm my mate. The word sends a thrill through Sage's wolf heart. He's claimed her, acknowledged their bond in front of his pack. But Marcus's yellow eyes narrow as they take in her silver fur. Your mate is human-born, he observes, not quite accusingly but close. My mate, Alexander says with quiet authority, is whatever she chooses to be. The exchange is brief, but loaded with meaning Sage doesn't fully understand. There's tension here, pack politics she's not privy to. But before she can ask questions, the knot wolves attack. The battle that follows is like nothing from her human nightmares. These wolves, her wolves, she thinks with fierce pride, move like liquid violence. They're outnumbered by the knot wolves, but they're faster, smarter, working together with the kind of coordination that comes from years of training. Sage finds herself fighting beside Alexander, their movements synchronized as if they've been partners for centuries. When he goes left, she goes right. When she creates an opening, he exploits it without hesitation. Together, they're devastating. But the Knot Wolves aren't defenseless. Their leader proves especially cunning, using the terrain to his advantage and targeting the smaller pack members with strategic precision. One of the younger wolves, barely more than a pup, goes down with a pained yelp that sends rage surging through Sage's veins. She breaks from formation, lunging at the creature that hurt the young wolf. Her attack is fueled by pure instinct, but something else guides her movements. Power. The bloodline magic the Knot Wolves want so desperately blazes through her limbs, making her faster, stronger than she should be. Her claws find the creature's throat, and it falls with a gurgling cry. Well, the leader says conversationally, even as his forces are decimated around him. That's interesting. Before Sage can ask what he means, pain explodes through her side. She looks down to see the leader's claws buried deep in her ribs, black blood already staining her silver fur. Sage. Alexander's mental roar of fury and fear echoes through her consciousness as her legs give out. The world tilts sideways as she hits the ground. Through dimming vision, she sees Alexander tear the leader's throat out with savage efficiency. But it's too late. The damage is done. The claws were poisoned. The dying creature whispers with its last breath. Enjoy your mate while you can, old wolf. She won't last the night. Silence falls over the clearing like a shroud. Sage tries to rise, but her body won't obey. The poison is spreading through her system, burning like acid in her veins. No, Alexander says, his mental voice breaking. No, this cannot happen. Not when I've just found you. The pack gathers around them, but Sage barely notices. Her consciousness is fragmenting, the wolf retreating as her human form reasserts itself. She's naked and shivering in Alexander's arms before she fully understands what's happening. The poison, Marcus says grimly. It's designed specifically for our kind. There's no cure. There has to be something, Alexander snarls, cradling Sage against his human chest. She realizes dimly that he's shifted back to human form too, though she missed the transformation. Alex, she whispers, using the shortened version of his name instinctively. I can't, something's wrong. Shoo, he soothes, stroking her hair. You're going to be fine. We'll figure this out. But Marcus's expression suggests otherwise. The poison disrupts the connection between human and wolf consciousness. For someone fully awakened like us, it would be painful but survivable. But for someone who just transformed for the first time, he doesn't need to finish. Sage understands. The poison isn't just killing her wolf. It's tearing apart the newly formed bridge between her two natures. The process that should have taken years of careful development is being destroyed in minutes. How long? Alexander asks quietly. Hours, Marcus replies. Maybe less. Sage feels darkness creeping in at the edges of her vision. But before unconsciousness can take her, she forces herself to focus on Alexander's face. His silver eyes are bright with unshed tears, and she realizes this magnificent, ancient creature is breaking apart at the thought of losing her. Hey, she whispers, reaching up to touch his cheek. It's okay. It's not okay, he says fiercely. I've waited 3 centuries to find you. I won't lose you now. 3 centuries. The pieces are starting to come together, but there's no time to ask the questions burning in her mind. The ritual. The white wolf speaks up suddenly. There is one possibility. All eyes turn to her. She's elderly, Sage realizes, her muzzle gray with age and her amber eyes deep with wisdom. Elena, Marcus warns. That ritual hasn't been attempted in generations. And never on someone so newly awakened. What ritual? Alexander demands. Elena shifts to human form. An elegant woman in her 60s with silver hair and kind eyes. A complete bonding. Not just of hearts and minds, but of life force itself. Your strength could sustain her through the poison's effects, help her wolf nature fully integrate. What's the cost? Alexander asks, though his tone suggests he already knows he'll pay whatever price is demanded. If it fails, Elena says gently, you both die. If it succeeds, she pauses, studying their faces. You'll be bonded for life. Her death will be yours, and yours will be hers. No separation ever. Sage tries to speak, to tell them this is insane, but the poison has stolen her voice. All she can do is look into Alexander's silver eyes and see the decision already made. Do it, he says without hesitation. Alex, no, Sage manages to whisper. Too dangerous. He leans down until his forehead touches hers. I've lived for 3 centuries waiting for you. What's the point of immortality without the person who makes existence worthwhile? The pack forms a circle around them as Elena begins to chant in a language older than civilization. Sage feels power building in the air, ancient magic that predates human understanding. Do you accept this bond freely? Elena asks, knowing that your lives will be intertwined until the end of time? Yes, Alexander says without hesitation. Sage tries to speak, tries to add her consent, but darkness is already pulling her under. The last thing she feels is Alexander's lips on hers, sharing breath and life and hope across the growing chasm of unconsciousness. Chapter 9. Sage. Sage wakes to the sensation of sunlight on her face and the steady rhythm of a heartbeat that isn't her own. She's lying on something warm and solid, her cheek pressed against bare skin that smells like pine forests and wild spaces. Gradually, she becomes aware that she's wrapped in strong arms, held against a chest that rises and falls in the deep, even pattern of sleep. Alexander. The memories crash back all at once. The battle, the poison, the bonding ritual. Sage sits up carefully, not wanting to wake him, and takes stock of her situation. They're in a cabin she's never seen before, lying on a large bed covered with thick furs. Pale morning light streams through windows that look out onto deep forest. She's wearing an oversized flannel shirt that must belong to Alexander, while he's bare-chested beneath the covers. More importantly, she feels different. The poison's burning agony is gone, replaced by a sense of vitality that seems almost electric. When she concentrates, she can sense Alexander's presence like a warm glow in her mind. Not just his location, but his emotions. The deep contentment of restful sleep, and underneath it, a fierce protectiveness that makes her heart flutter. The bond worked. They're alive, and they're connected in a way that goes far beyond anything she could have imagined. You're awake. Alexander's voice is rough with sleep, but his silver eyes are instantly alert as they focus on her face. How do you feel? Different, Sage admits, settling back against his chest. But good different. Like I'm more myself than I've ever been. His arms tighten around her. I was terrified the ritual had failed. You were unconscious for 2 days. 2 days. No wonder she feels disoriented. My family must be worried sick. Alexander's expression grows complicated. Marcus spoke with them. Told them you were safe but needed time to recover from your encounter with wild animals. Wild animals? Despite everything, Sage almost smiles. I suppose that's technically true. Sage, Alexander says carefully, there are things we need to discuss. About what happened to you, about what you are now. She knows he's right. The transformation, the bond, the revelation about ancient bloodlines. It's all too much to process without guidance. But first, there's something else she needs to understand. How long have you been waiting for me? She asks. You mentioned 3 centuries. Alexander is quiet for so long that Sage begins to wonder if he's going to answer. When he finally speaks, his voice carries the weight of centuries. I was born in 1720, he says simply. Turned during the Great War between the bloodlines. I've been searching for my mate ever since. The number stuns her into silence. 300 years of solitude, of waiting for someone who might never come. The loneliness he must have endured is staggering. How did you know it was me? She whispers. I felt it the moment I saw you in the forest, Alexander replies, stroking her hair gently. The recognition was instantaneous, overwhelming. I've dreamed of you for decades, though I never saw your face clearly until that first night. Sage thinks about her own dreams, the wolf that had felt familiar even before their first meeting. I dreamed of you too. I just didn't understand what it meant. The bond calls to both partners, Alexander explains. Even before awakening, you would have felt the pull. Is that why my feelings for Derek faded so quickly? The question slips out before she can stop it, and she feels heat rise in her cheeks. Alexander's arms tighten possessively around her. Derek, the human male who was with you that first night. There's something in his tone that makes Sage look up at him sharply. Alex, you didn't hurt him, did you? No, he says, though his expression suggests the restraint wasn't easy. Though every instinct screamed at me to eliminate the competition. There was no competition, Sage says firmly. Even before I understood what we were, I knew Derek wasn't right for me. Good. Alexander says with primal satisfaction. Because now that we're bonded, sharing you with another would be impossible. The possessiveness in his voice should probably alarm her, but instead it sends a thrill through her entire body. She's never been claimed so completely, never felt so desired. What does the bond mean exactly? She asks, needing to understand the magnitude of what they've committed to. It means, Alexander says, his voice growing serious, that we are two halves of one soul. What affects one affects the other. If you're hurt, I feel it. If I'm in danger, you'll know. Our lifespans are now linked. I'll share my longevity with you, and you'll share your mortality with me. Meaning we'll live as long as any bonded pair can survive together. Centuries, if we're careful and strong. The concept is overwhelming. Centuries of life, of love, of existence beyond anything she'd ever imagined for herself. Are you sorry? Alexander asks quietly. About the choice I made. I didn't ask your permission to bind our lives together. Sage considers this. A week ago, she was an ordinary college-bound girl whose biggest concern was her sister's wedding. Now she's a supernatural creature bonded for life to a 300-year-old wolf shifter. She should be terrified. Should be mourning the human life she'll never have. Instead, she feels complete for the first time in her existence. No, she says firmly. I'm not sorry. But Alex, there are things in my human life that I can't just abandon. My family college. I understand, he says, though she can sense his reluctance through their bond. We'll figure out how to balance both worlds. I've had centuries to learn patience. A knock on the cabin door interrupts them. Alexander, the girl's family is here. Sage recognizes Marcus's voice and feels a spike of panic. They can't see you like this. They don't know about any of this. Alexander sits up, his expression growing grim. They'll have to know eventually. You can't hide what you are forever. I know, Sage says. But not today. Please. Let me figure out how to explain this without giving them heart attacks. Alexander nods reluctantly and reaches for clothes from a dresser beside the bed. As he dresses, Sage becomes aware of voices outside, familiar voices that make her heart clench with guilt and worry. Sage, are you in there? Luna's voice carries through the door, tight with anxiety. Where the hell is my daughter? That's her father, angrier than she's ever heard him. And who the hell are you people? Derek's voice adds to the mix. Sage closes her eyes. This is going to be complicated. I need to go out there, she tells Alexander. They've been worried sick. I'll be nearby, he promises. If you need me, just call through the bond. Sage nods and makes her way to the door, pausing to look back at Alexander one more time. Even knowing their connection will never truly be broken, leaving him feels wrong. But her human family deserves answers. And somehow, she has to find a way to give them without destroying the carefully constructed world they've always known. Taking a deep breath, Sage opens the door to face the life she's leaving behind. Chapter 10, Sage. The scene outside the cabin is more chaotic than Sage expected. Her parents, Luna, and Derek stand in a tight cluster near two cars, facing off against Marcus and three other pack members who have clearly appointed themselves as guardians. The tension is thick enough to cut with a knife. There she is. Luna breaks away from the group the moment she spots Sage, rushing forward with tears streaming down her face. Oh my God, Sage, we thought you were dead. Sage catches her sister in a fierce hug, guilt crushing down on her as she feels Luna's trembling. I'm okay. I'm sorry I scared you. Scared us. Their father's voice cracks with emotion as he approaches. Sage, you've been missing for 3 days. We called the police, organized search parties. Derek found blood in the kitchen. Blood. Sage's stomach drops as she remembers her scratched and torn appearance when she'd returned from the forest. Derek must have seen the evidence after she'd disappeared again. Where have you been? Their mother demands, her face pale with exhaustion and worry. And who are these people? They won't let us near this place, won't tell us anything except that you're safe. Sage looks back at Marcus, who gives her a slight nod. The decision of how much to reveal is hers to make. I got lost in the woods, she says carefully. Really lost. These people found me and helped me recover from some injuries. What kind of injuries? Derek steps forward, his expression sharp with suspicion. Sage, there was broken glass in your kitchen. Your back door was nearly torn off its hinges. What the hell happened? The pack members exchange glances. Sage realizes they're all tensed for potential violence, ready to protect her if her human family becomes a threat. The thought that Derek or her parents could be seen as dangerous would be laughable if the situation weren't so serious. There was an animal attack, Sage says, settling on a version of the truth. Something broke into the house. I ran into the woods to get away and got turned around in the dark. An animal attack? Luna's eyes widen. What kind of animal? Wolves. Marcus answers before Sage can respond. A pack of them, but not natural ones. We've been tracking them for weeks. It's not entirely a lie, Sage realizes. The not wolves were definitely unnatural. Wolves don't behave like that, Derek says firmly. They don't break into houses. And wolves in Maine don't travel in large packs. These weren't ordinary wolves, Marcus replies calmly. They were rabid, diseased. We managed to track them down and eliminate the threat. Sage's father steps forward, studying Marcus with the careful attention of someone who's spent years reading people. And you are? Marcus Thorne. I run a wildlife management company. We specialize in dangerous animal situations. The lie comes so smoothly that Sage almost believes it herself. Marcus has clearly had practice explaining supernatural situations to human authorities. I want to take my daughter home, her father says firmly. She needs to see a doctor, and we need to call the police about this attack. The police have been notified, Marcus assures him. As for medical care, she's been thoroughly examined. No serious injuries. By who? Derek demands. Where's the medical report? The documentation? Sage can sense the pack's growing agitation through her bond with Alexander. They're not used to being questioned so extensively by humans, and their patience is wearing thin. It's okay, she says quickly, stepping between the two groups. Derek, I appreciate your concern, but I really am fine. You don't look fine, Derek says bluntly. You look different. Changed. The observation sends a chill down Sage's spine. Can he actually see the transformation in her? Or is he just being his usual perceptive self? I've been through a traumatic experience, she says carefully. Of course I'm different. That's not what I mean, Derek insists, moving closer. Your eyes are brighter. Your posture is different. Even the way you smell is. He stops abruptly, confusion flickering across his face. The way I smell? Sage asks, her heart rate spiking. I don't know why I said that. Derek shakes his head as if clearing it. Sorry. I haven't been sleeping well. I've been worried sick. But Sage notices how his nostrils flare slightly when he's near her, how his body language shifts into something almost defensive. Her human scent has changed, overlaid now with Alexander's and the pack's. Derek's unconscious mind recognizes the difference, even if he can't explain it. I want to go home, she says quickly, before anyone can ask more questions. I need to shower and sleep in my own bed. Absolutely not, Marcus says firmly. It's not safe yet. What do you mean, not safe? Luna asks. You said you eliminated the threat. We eliminated the immediate threat, Marcus clarifies. But these animals were part of a larger problem. Until we're certain the area is secure, Sage needs to stay under our protection. Like hell she does, Derek snaps. You people have kept her isolated for 3 days without letting her family know she was okay. For all we know, you're the real threat here. The temperature in the clearing seems to drop several degrees. Sage feels the pack's wolf nature stirring beneath their human facades, responding to what they perceive as aggression toward their alpha's mate. Derek, she says urgently, please don't push this. Push what? But even as he asks, Derek seems to sense the change in atmosphere. His gaze darts between the pack members, taking in their suddenly predatory stillness. I think we should all take a step back, Sage's mother says nervously. She's always been good at reading social undercurrents, and she clearly senses something dangerous building. Sage can visit her family during the day, Marcus offers, his tone carefully controlled. But she needs to return here each evening, for her own safety. That's ridiculous, Derek argues. She's an adult. You can't just keep her prisoner. She's not a prisoner, a new voice says from behind Sage. Alexander emerges from the cabin, now fully dressed in jeans and a dark sweater. Even in human form, his presence commands immediate attention. He's tall, broad-shouldered, and moves with the fluid grace of a predator. But it's his eyes that capture everyone's focus. Those unusual silver eyes that seem to see everything. She's my mate, Alexander continues, moving to stand beside Sage. And she's under my protection. The word mate lands like a bomb in the middle of the tense standoff. You're what? Luna asks faintly. Derek's face goes through a series of expressions, confusion, disbelief, and finally a growing anger that makes Sage's new instincts scream warnings. "Sage," Derek says slowly, "what is he talking about?" Sage looks up at Alexander, then back at her family and Derek. There's no way to explain this that won't sound insane. No way to bridge the gap between their world and this one without destroying everything they think they know about reality. But as she stands there, caught between two worlds, she realizes she's already made her choice. The moment she accepted the bond with Alexander, she chose the supernatural world over the human one. Now she just has to find a way to help the people she loves understand that choice. "Derek," she says quietly, "I need you to sit down. All of you. Because what I'm about to tell you is going to change everything." Chapter 11, Sage. The silence that follows Sage's words stretches so long she begins to wonder if anyone will ever speak again. Her family stands frozen, processing what she's just told them. That werewolves are real, that she's one of them now, and that Alexander is her supernatural mate bound to her for life. Derek is the first to break the silence, and when he does, it's with laughter. Harsh, disbelieving laughter that makes Sage's heart sink. "This is insane," he says, shaking his head. "Sage, what have these people done to you? Have they drugged you? Brainwashed you?" "Derek," Sage begins, but he cuts her off. "Werewolves." Derek's voice rises with hysteria. "You're asking me to believe that werewolves are real, and that you've become one? And that this guy is your magical soulmate?" "I know how it sounds," Sage says desperately. "But it's the truth." "Prove it," Derek snaps. "If you're really a werewolf, prove it. Transform. Right now." Sage looks to Alexander, who gives her an almost imperceptible nod. She closes her eyes and reaches for the wolf within her, calling on the power that still feels foreign and overwhelming. The transformation comes easier this time. Her human form melts away like morning mist, replaced by silver fur and enhanced senses. She hears her mother's gasp, Luna's strangled cry, her father's muttered curse. But it's Derek's reaction that breaks her heart. He stumbles backward, his face draining of all color, until he's pressed against one of the cars. "No," he whispers. "No, this isn't real. This can't be real." Sage shifts back to human form, grateful when Alexander immediately wraps her in his jacket. The transformation leaves her momentarily vulnerable, and she needs his warmth and protection. "Derek," she says gently, "I'm still me. I'm still your friend." "Friend." Derek's voice cracks. "Sage, you're a monster. They've turned you into a monster." The word hits like a physical blow. Sage feels Alexander tense beside her, feels the pack's anger through their shared connection. But it's her own pain that overwhelms everything else. "I'm not a monster," she says quietly. "Aren't you?" Derek gestures wildly at Alexander and the pack. "Look at them. Look at what they've done to you. They've stolen you away from your real life, your real family. They've made you into something unnatural." "Derek, that's enough," Luna says sharply, though her own voice shakes with fear. "No, it's not enough." Derek rounds on Luna. "Don't you see what's happening here? They've kidnapped Sage and convinced her she's one of them. This is Stockholm Syndrome or something." "She wasn't kidnapped," Alexander says, his voice dangerously quiet. "She chose this. Chose us. Chose me. Because you manipulated her." Derek shouts. "She was vulnerable after our engagement, and you took advantage of that. You preyed on her when she was hurting." The accusation sends rage surging through Sage's veins. Before she can stop herself, she's stepping forward, placing herself between Derek and Alexander. "How dare you?" she snarls, and her voice carries undertones of growl that make Derek flinch. "You don't get to stand there and talk about me being vulnerable. You don't get to pretend you care about my pain when you're the one who caused it." "Sage." "No, Derek. You want to talk about manipulation? Let's talk about how you used me for years. How you let me write your speeches, do your homework, be your emotional support system while you chased after other girls. How you knew exactly how I felt about you and strung me along anyway." Derek's face flushes red. "That's not how it was. Isn't it?" Sage's voice rises. "You kept me close enough to be useful, but far enough away to avoid commitment. And then when you decided you were ready to settle down, you chose my sister. My sister, Derek. While I was still right there, still hoping. I never meant to hurt you," Derek says weakly. "But you did. Over and over again. And now you have the audacity to stand here and act like you're protecting me." Sage laughs bitterly. "I don't need protection from Alexander. I need protection from people who claim to love me while they tear me apart piece by piece. The clearing falls silent again. Sage realizes she's shaking with fury, her wolf nature responding to the emotional turmoil. Alexander's hand on her shoulder helps ground her, reminding her she's not alone in this fight. "Sage," her father says quietly, "is this really what you want? This life?" She looks at her father, the man who raised her, who taught her to ride a bike and helped with her homework and walked her through every crisis of her childhood. His eyes are full of love and fear and desperate hope that she'll choose the familiar over the unknown. "Yes," she says simply. "It is." Her mother starts crying then, quiet tears that she tries to hide behind her hands. "We're losing you, aren't we? You're going to disappear into this world, and we'll never really have you back." The pain in her mother's voice nearly breaks Sage's resolve. But Alexander's presence strengthens her, reminding her that she's not just leaving something behind. She's stepping into something greater. "You're not losing me," Sage says firmly. "I'm still your daughter. I'm still Luna's sister. But I'm also something more now, and I need you to accept that." "How can we accept this?" Luna asks, her voice small and lost. "How can we pretend everything is normal when you're what you are?" "The same way you've always accepted me," Sage replies. "With love, with trust, with the understanding that I'm still the same person you've always known, just with a few extra abilities." "A few extra abilities?" Derek's voice is sharp with disbelief. "Sage, you can turn into a wolf. You're bonded to a man you barely know. You're talking about living for centuries. How is any of that normal?" "It's not normal," Sage admits. "But it's my reality now. And I need the people I love to find a way to be okay with that." Marcus steps forward, his expression diplomatic. "Perhaps this would be easier if we gave everyone time to process." "Sage, you're welcome to spend the day with your family. Return here by evening." "She's not going anywhere with you people," Derek says immediately. "She's not going anywhere without us," Alexander corrects, his tone leaving no room for argument. "The threat that brought us together hasn't been eliminated. There are still dangers out there that target her specifically." "What kind of dangers?" Sage's father asks. Marcus and Alexander exchange glances. "Other supernatural creatures," Marcus says carefully. "Ones that view Sage as either a threat or a valuable prize." "Because of what she is," Luna says slowly, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Because of what she represents," Alexander corrects. "She's the last of an ancient bloodline. That makes her very important to a lot of very dangerous people." Derek throws his hands up in frustration. "This keeps getting worse. Now you're telling us she's some kind of chosen one. That she's going to spend her life running from supernatural monsters." "I'm telling you that she needs protection," Alexander says simply. "And I'm the one who's going to provide it." "For how long?" Derek demands. "Forever? She's supposed to hide away in the woods forever, because you people have made her a target." "She's not hiding," Alexander says, his patience clearly wearing thin. "She's learning to defend herself. Learning to use the power she was born with." "Power she didn't know she had until you showed up," Derek points out. "Power that would have manifested eventually," Marcus interjects. "With or without our intervention. We simply provided guidance during her awakening." "And if we refused to let her go with you?" Derek asks, his jaw set stubbornly. The pack members shift subtly, their relaxed postures tightening into readiness. Sage feels Alexander's protective instincts flare through their bond. "That would be unwise," Marcus says mildly. "Is that a threat?" Derek demands. "It's a fact," Alexander says coldly. "Sage is my mate, bonded to me by laws older than human civilization. Any attempt to separate us would be considered an act of war." "By who?" "Your pack. Your species." Derek's voice drips with sarcasm. "By me," Alexander says simply, and the quiet menace in his voice makes everyone step back. Sage realizes the conversation is spiraling toward violence. She can feel the pack's agitation, can sense how close they are to viewing her human family as a threat rather than an inconvenience. "Stop," she says firmly. "All of you just stop." She turns to face her family, drawing on every ounce of strength and authority her new nature provides. "I love you all," she says simply. "But I've made my choice. I'm going to learn about what I am, and I'm going to be with Alexander. You can accept that and find a way to be part of my new life, or you can fight it and lose me entirely." The ultimatum hangs in the air like a sword. Sage hates giving it, hates forcing the people she loves to choose between acceptance and loss. But she can't live torn between two worlds anymore. And if we choose to accept it, her father asks quietly, then we figure out how to make this work, Sage says. Together. Her mother wipes her eyes and straightens her shoulders. Then I guess we have a lot to learn about werewolves. It's not quite the enthusiastic acceptance Sage had hoped for, but it's a start. Luna nods slowly, though fear still lingers in her eyes. Her father looks resigned but determined. Derek, however, shakes his head. I can't do this, Sage. I can't pretend this is okay. Sage's heart breaks a little more. Derek. No, he says firmly. I won't watch you throw your life away for some supernatural fantasy. When you come to your senses, when you realize what a mistake this is, call me. Until then. He doesn't finish the sentence. He just gets in his car and drives away, leaving Sage staring after him with tears in her eyes. He'll come around, Luna says quietly, moving to squeeze Sage's hand. Sage isn't so sure. But as Alexander's arms wrap around her from behind, as she feels the pack's acceptance and her family's tentative support, she realizes that Derek's approval isn't necessary for her happiness. She has everything she needs right here. Chapter 12, Alexander. Alexander watches his mate's heart break as the human male drives away, and every protective instinct in his body screams for action. The urge to pursue, to drag the ungrateful fool back and force him to accept what Sage has become, burns through his veins like acid. But he restrains himself. Barely. Through their bond, he feels Sage's pain as if it were his own. The grief of losing someone she considered a friend, the guilt over harsh words that can't be taken back, the fear that she's made the wrong choice. Her emotions crash over him in waves, threatening to overwhelm his careful control. Let him go, Sage whispers, though Alexander hadn't moved. She knows him well enough already to sense his violent intentions. He hurt you, Alexander says simply, his voice carrying undertones of growl that make the remaining humans shift nervously. He's hurt, Sage corrects. There's a difference. Alexander isn't convinced, but he forces himself to relax. His mate's compassion is one of the things he loves most about her, even when it extends to those who don't deserve it. We should get you back to the cabin, Marcus suggests diplomatically. Give everyone time to process what's happened here. Sage nods, but she doesn't move from where she's standing between her human family and the pack. Alexander can sense her internal struggle. Torn between two worlds, trying to bridge a gap that may be too wide to cross. Mom, Sage says quietly, I meant what I said. I'm still your daughter. Nothing will change that. Diana Blackwood nods, though tears continue to track down her cheeks. I know, sweetheart. It's just a lot to take in. We'll need time, Sage's father adds, his voice strained. Time to understand what this means for all of us. Of course, Alexander says, making an effort to sound less threatening. But Sage is right about the dangers. Until we're certain the threat has passed, she needs to stay under pack protection. What about college? Luna asks suddenly. Sage is supposed to start at Portland in the fall. She's been planning this for years. The question hits Alexander like a physical blow. In all the chaos of the bonding and the aftermath, he hadn't considered the human life Sage would be leaving behind. College, career, the normal progression of mortal existence. None of it compatible with her new reality. College can wait, Marcus says carefully. Sage has more pressing concerns now. Like what? Luna demands, some of her old fire returning. Learning to be a werewolf. That's more important than her education. Learning to survive is more important than anything, Alexander says firmly. The creatures that attacked her weren't acting alone. There will be others. For how long? Diana asks. How long does she have to live in fear? Alexander exchanges glances with Marcus. The truth is complicated, potentially frightening. The war between bloodlines has been going on for centuries, with no clear end in sight. As the last of her particular lineage, Sage will always be a target. It's hard to say, Marcus hedges. These conflicts can be protracted. Years. Sage's father presses. Possibly, Alexander admits reluctantly. So our daughter gives up her entire future because you people can't keep your supernatural wars to yourselves? Diana's voice rises with anger. Your daughter, Alexander says with quiet authority, was born into this war whether she knew it or not. We didn't create her heritage. We're simply helping her understand it. Heritage. Luna laughs bitterly. You make it sound like some family tradition instead of a curse. The word curse sends a spike of rage through Alexander's consciousness. Sage tenses beside him, responding to his emotional state through their bond. It's not a curse, Sage says firmly, her voice carrying new authority. It's a gift. I'm stronger now, faster, more aware. I can protect myself and the people I care about. By turning into a monster, Diana says quietly. By becoming who I was always meant to be, Sage corrects. The conversation is going in circles, emotions running too high for rational discussion. Alexander can sense the pack's growing impatience, their instinct to withdraw from hostile humans and protect their alpha's mate. Perhaps, he suggests carefully, we should continue this conversation another time, when emotions have cooled. Emotions, Diana's voice cracks. My daughter has been transformed into a supernatural creature and bonded to a stranger for life. And you think this is about emotions? I think, Alexander says with dangerous calm, that Sage has made her choice. The question is whether you'll respect it or spend your remaining time together fighting what can't be changed. The blunt words hit their target. Diana flinches as if struck, while Luna covers her mouth in shock. Alex, Sage warns quietly. No, he says, though he moderates his tone slightly. They need to understand. This isn't a phase she'll grow out of or a mistake she can undo. This is who she is now, permanently. And what about what we need? Luna asks, tears starting again. What about our family? Our plans? Your plans, Alexander says simply, never included what Sage actually is. You made decisions based on incomplete information. Because we didn't know, Luna shouts. How could we plan for something impossible? The same way Sage is planning now, Alexander replies. One day at a time, adapting to new realities. Sage steps forward, placing a calming hand on his arm. Through their bond, he feels her request for patience, for compassion toward the humans who raised her. Luna, Sage says gently, I know this is hard, but I need you to try to understand. I'm not leaving you. I'm just expanding our family. She gestures toward the pack, toward Alexander. These are my people now too, and hopefully they can learn to be your people as well. Luna looks skeptical, but she nods slowly. I suppose we don't have much choice. You always have choices, Alexander says, surprising himself with his own generosity. But some choices have consequences. Rejecting Sage means losing her entirely. And accepting her means accepting all of this, Diana says, waving at the pack. The danger, the secrecy, the constant fear. It means accepting that your daughter is extraordinary, Alexander corrects. That she's capable of things you never imagined. For a moment, Diana's expression softens. She always was extraordinary, even as a human. Now she has the power to match her spirit, Alexander says simply. The tension in the clearing eases slightly. Not resolution, but a tentative truce. Enough for families to rebuild bridges, for understanding to slowly develop. I should go with them, Sage says quietly, addressing her family. Not forever. Just until we're sure it's safe. Will you visit? Luna asks in a small voice. Every day if you want, Sage promises. This doesn't have to be goodbye. It just has to be different. Luna nods, though she's clearly struggling with the concept. Diana and Robert exchange glances, some silent communication passing between them. We'll try, Diana says finally. We'll try to understand. It's not everything Alexander hoped for, but it's more than many humans manage when confronted with supernatural reality. Sage's family loves her enough to attempt acceptance, even when that acceptance challenges everything they believe about the world. Thank you, Sage says simply, hugging each of her family members in turn. As the humans prepare to leave, Alexander notices Marcus watching him with an unreadable expression. What? Alexander asks quietly. You handled that well, Marcus observes. Better than I expected. What did you expect? Honestly? For you to eat the male who called your mate a monster. Alexander considers this. The thought occurred to me, but you didn't act on it. Why? Alexander looks at Sage, who's having a quiet conversation with her sister near the cars. Because it would have hurt her, and her pain is mine now. Marcus nods approvingly. The bond is already changing you, making you more human. Is that a bad thing? For an alpha who needs to lead both human-born and pack-born wolves? It's essential. Alexander watches as Sage's family drives away, leaving her standing alone in the clearing. She looks lost, caught between grief and hope. Regrets? he asks, moving to stand beside her. Some, she admits. But not about the choice I made. Just about the cost of making it. Alexander wraps his arms around her from behind, letting his strength support her through the emotional turmoil. All the best choices have costs, he says quietly. The question is whether you can live with paying them. Sage leans back against his chest, letting herself be held. Ask me again in 100 years. The casual reference to their extended lifespan makes Alexander smile. She's already thinking in terms of centuries, already accepting the magnitude of their shared future. I will, he promises. And I already know what your answer will be. As they walk back toward the cabin together, Alexander allows himself to hope that the worst is behind them, that they can build a life together, bridging the gap between human and wolf, mortal and immortal. He's wrong, of course. The real challenges are just beginning. But for now, in this moment, his mate is safe in his arms and the future stretches out before them like an unwritten story. It's enough. Chapter 13, Sage. 2 weeks pass in a blur of training, learning, and adapting to her new reality. Sage splits her time between the pack's territory and visits with her human family, trying to maintain connections to both worlds while fully belonging to neither. The training is exhausting. Elena, the pack's elder, works with her every morning on controlling her transformations. What seemed easy in moments of crisis proves incredibly difficult when attempted deliberately. More than once, Sage finds herself stuck halfway between forms, her bones aching as they try to reshape themselves without her wolf's cooperation. You're fighting it, Elena observes as Sage struggles through another failed attempt. The transformation isn't something you force, it's something you allow. I am allowing it, Sage pants, sweat beading on her forehead from the effort. You're trying to control every aspect of the change, Elena corrects gently. Trust your wolf. Let her guide the process. Easier said than done. Sage has spent her entire life believing that control equals safety, that managing every variable is the key to success. Surrendering that control, even to another part of herself, feels terrifying. But gradually, with Elena's patient guidance, she begins to understand. The wolf isn't a separate entity to be managed. It's an integral part of who she is. Fighting it is like fighting her own heartbeat. The first time she achieves a smooth, painless transformation, the euphoria is overwhelming. She stands on 4 legs in the afternoon sunlight, silver fur gleaming, feeling more complete than she ever has in human form. Beautiful, Alexander says from where he's been watching her practice. Even in mental voice, his pride and love are evident. The other aspects of pack life are more challenging. The hierarchy is complex, based on strength, age, and bloodline in ways that sometimes contradict human logic. As Alexander's mate, Sage automatically holds a high position, but she hasn't earned it through action or experience. Some pack members, particularly the younger ones, regard her with barely concealed resentment. She's an outsider who gains status through bonding rather than proving herself. The fact that she's still learning basic skills only adds to their skepticism. They'll come around, Marcus assures her after a particularly tense training session where one of the younger wolves made his displeasure obvious. Pack bonds take time to develop. What if they don't? Sage asks. What if I never really fit in? Then you make your own place, Marcus says simply. Alpha mates don't follow existing patterns, they create new ones. The comment stays with Sage as she makes her way to town for her daily visit with her family. The distance between the pack territory and Crescent Falls is only a few miles, but it feels like traveling between different planets. Her human family is trying to adapt, but the strain shows. Luna has thrown herself into wedding planning with manic energy, as if focusing on normal activities can make the supernatural elements of their lives disappear. Their mother hovers constantly when Sage visits, asking endless questions about her safety and well-being. Their father has taken a different approach. He's been researching. Sage arrives to find him surrounded by books about folklore, mythology, and cryptozoology. Finding anything useful? She asks, settling onto the couch beside him. Mostly fiction, Robert admits. But there are patterns in the stories. Recurring themes that suggest some basis in truth. Like what? Bloodlines. Ancient families with supernatural gifts that skip generations before manifesting. He looks at her meaningfully. Sound familiar? Sage nods. Elena has told her something similar. That her wolf nature comes from both sides of her family tree, dormant genes that aligned in just the right way to awaken her abilities. "Have you found anything about my birth parents?" she asks quietly. It's a question that's been haunting her since learning about her supernatural heritage. If she inherited these abilities, where did they come from? Who were the people who abandoned her in the forest as a baby? Robert's expression grows troubled. "I've been looking into the adoption records. It's difficult. A lot of the paperwork from that time period is incomplete or missing." "Missing how?" "Deliberately destroyed, from what I can tell. As if someone wanted to erase all traces of where you came from." A chill runs down Sage's spine. "Why would someone do that?" "To protect you," a voice says from the doorway. Sage turns to see Elena standing there, having approached with the silent grace common to all pack members. Her human family startles at the unexpected visitor. "Elena, what are you doing here?" "Alexander sent me to escort you back. There's been a development." Elena's expression is grim. "But first, I believe your father's questions deserve answers." Elena enters the room without invitation, her presence immediately commanding attention despite her slight build and elderly appearance. "The records were destroyed because knowing the truth would have made Sage a target much earlier," Elena explains. Her birth parents understood this when they made the decision to abandon her. "Abandon her?" Diana's voice is sharp with protective anger. "They left a baby in the woods to die. They left her where she would be found by people who could raise her safely," Elena corrects. "Away from the supernatural world that would have hunted her from birth." "Who were they?" Sage asks, though part of her isn't sure she wants to know. Elena is quiet for a long moment, studying Sage's face. "Your mother was named Lydia Moonshade. She was the last surviving member of one of the oldest werewolf bloodlines in North America." Moonshade. The name resonates through Sage's consciousness like an echo from a half-remembered dream. "And my father?" "Human. A researcher who was studying supernatural phenomena when he met your mother. Their bonding was controversial." "Controversial how?" Robert asks. "Mixed pairings were rare then and often ended badly. The supernatural world was less accepting of human-born children." Elena's expression grows darker. "There were those who believed the bloodlines should remain pure. The Notwolves." Sage realizes Elena is talking about the same faction that had attacked her in the forest. "What happened to them?" she asks quietly. "They were killed when you were 6 months old. Hunted down by extremists who saw your mixed heritage as an abomination." Elena's voice is matter of fact, but Sage can hear the underlying sadness. "They died protecting you." The words hit like a physical blow. Sage has grown up thinking her birth parents abandoned her out of selfishness or fear. To learn they died saving her, that their sacrifice allowed her to have a normal childhood with the Blackwoods, reframes everything. "How do you know all this?" Diana asks suspiciously. "Because I was there," Elena says simply. "I was part of the pack that found their bodies. I was the one who argued that the baby should be taken somewhere safe, raised away from our world until she was old enough to choose for herself." "You knew," Sage whispers. "All this time, you knew who I was." Elena nods. "I've been watching over you from a distance for years, making sure you stayed safe, stayed hidden. Then why didn't you tell me when I first transformed? Why let me think I was just some random anomaly?" "Because you needed to choose this life freely," Elena explains. "Not because of obligation to parents you never knew, or guilt over their sacrifice. Your mother's last wish was that you would have the chance to live as a normal human if that's what you wanted." Sage feels tears burning her eyes. Her birth parents, people she'll never know, loved her enough to die for her safety. And Elena, this woman she's known for only weeks, has been protecting her for her entire life. "The development Alexander mentioned," Luna says suddenly. "What's happened?" Elena's expression grows grim. "We've received word that more extremist factions are mobilizing. Word of Sage's awakening has spread through the supernatural community." Meaning the real war is just beginning," Elena says quietly. "And Sage is about to become the most hunted person in North America." Outside, a car door slams. Through the window, Sage sees Derek's familiar truck in the driveway. He's been avoiding her since their confrontation, but apparently he's decided to break that silence. The front door opens and Derek strides in, then stops dead when he sees Elena. "Who the hell are you?" he demands. "Someone who's here to keep Sage alive," Elena replies calmly. Derek's gaze darts between Elena and Sage, taking in the tense atmosphere. "What's going on? What's this about Sage being hunted?" "It's complicated," Sage begins, but Derek cuts her off. No, it's not complicated. It's insane. His voice rises with familiar anger. You people have turned her life into some supernatural nightmare, and now you're telling us it's going to get worse? Derek. Diana tries to intervene, but he's not listening. This has to stop, Derek continues, advancing on Elena. I don't care what you are or what powers you have. Sage doesn't deserve this. She deserves a normal life with people who actually care about her well-being. Elena doesn't flinch as Derek approaches, but Sage feels a change in the air. Something dangerous and predatory has awakened in the elderly woman's eyes. Be very careful, Elena says quietly. How you speak about caring for someone you abandoned at the first sign of difficulty. I didn't abandon her, Derek snaps. I tried to save her from people like you. People like me? Elena tilts her head with deadly calm. And what kind of person am I, exactly? The temperature in the room seems to drop several degrees. Sage realizes with growing alarm that Derek is about to make a very serious mistake. You're a monster, Derek says. All of you. And you've made Sage into one too. The word hangs in the air like a curse. Elena's expression doesn't change, but Sage feels power building around the elder like a gathering storm. Derek, Sage says urgently, you need to stop talking. Right now. But Derek is beyond listening. Weeks of frustration and fear have finally found their target, and he's not backing down. I'm done being polite about this, he declares. I'm done pretending this is okay. Sage, I'm not leaving here without you. This ends today. Chapter 14, Sage. The silence that follows Derek's ultimatum is deafening. Sage can feel the tension in the room like a living thing, coiled and ready to strike. Elena stands perfectly still, but there's something predatory in her stillness that makes every instinct Sage has scream warnings. Derek, Sage says carefully, you need to leave. Now. I'm not going anywhere without you, Derek repeats, his jaw set with stubborn determination. I've watched these people isolate you from everyone who cares about you. I've watched them fill your head with supernatural nonsense and convince you that you're something you're not. Something I'm not. Sage's voice carries a dangerous edge. Derek, you saw me transform. You know what I am. I know what they've made you believe you are, Derek corrects. But people can be conditioned, Sage. They can be manipulated into accepting any reality if the manipulation is sophisticated enough. Luna gasps. Derek, you can't seriously think. Can I? Derek rounds on her. Think about it, Luna. 3 weeks ago, Sage was a normal college-bound girl. Now she thinks she's a werewolf bonded to some ancient creature for life. Does that sound like a gradual awakening to you? Or does it sound like brainwashing? Sage feels something cold settle in her stomach. Not because Derek's words carry any truth, but because she can see the doubt flickering in her parents' eyes. They want to believe in her new reality, but Derek's argument appeals to their desperate hope that this is all somehow reversible. Derek, Diana says slowly, we saw her transform. With our own eyes. Did you? Derek challenges. Or did you see what they wanted you to see? These people have abilities we don't understand. Who's to say they can't create illusions, mess with our perceptions? Because I felt it, Sage says firmly. I felt my body change, my senses expand. I felt the wolf wake up inside me. Feelings can be manipulated too, Derek insists. Drugs, hypnosis, psychological conditioning. There are a dozen ways to make someone believe they're experiencing something that isn't real. Elena finally speaks, her voice carrying ancient authority. You would rather believe in an elaborate conspiracy than accept that the world is larger than your human understanding. I'd rather believe in science than magic, Derek shoots back. I'd rather trust evidence than fairy tales. Evidence. Elena's smile is sharp as winter ice. Very well. Let me provide you with evidence. Before anyone can react, Elena's form begins to shift. But this isn't the smooth transformation Sage has been learning to master. This is something older, more primal. Elena's human shape fractures like glass, revealing something that shouldn't exist in the rational world Derek clings to. The creature that emerges is massive, even larger than Alexander in wolf form. Her fur is silver white with age, her eyes burning amber coals. But it's the sheer presence of her that's overwhelming. Centuries of accumulated power and knowledge made manifest. Derek stumbles backward, his face draining of color. No, this isn't real. This can't be real. The wolf that was Elena speaks, her mental voice filling the room with authority that bypasses human skepticism and speaks directly to evolutionary memory. Real enough to tear your throat out, child. Real enough to hunt your kind as prey for millennia before we chose to hide among you. Derek's back hits the wall as he continues to retreat, his breathing coming in sharp, panicked gasps. Hallucination. This is a hallucination. Someone drugged me. Derek, stop. Sage pleads, moving toward him. This is real. She's real. I'm real. But Derek's grip on rationality is crumbling, and with it, his ability to accept what he's seeing. No. No, I won't let them do this to you. I won't let them steal you away with lies and tricks. He lunges forward, not toward Elena but toward Sage, his hands reaching for her arms. Come with me. Right now. We'll go to a hospital, get you checked for drugs, for psychological conditioning. We'll figure out what they did to you and undo it. The moment Derek's hands touch her, several things happen at once. Sage's wolf nature responds to what it perceives as an attack, flooding her system with protective fury. Elena snarls with the sound of breaking mountains. And from outside, a howl cuts through the air, Alexander, responding to his mate's distress through their bond. Let go of me, Sage says, her voice carrying harmonics that make Derek flinch. I'm trying to save you, Derek insists, tightening his grip. From what? Sage's eyes begin to glow with silver light. From being loved? From being protected? From finally understanding who I really am? From being a monster? Derek shouts. The word hangs in the air like a curse. Elena's massive form tenses for attack, while Sage goes very still in Derek's grasp. A monster, Sage repeats quietly. Yes. Look at yourself, Sage. Look at what you've become. Your eyes are glowing. You're making sounds no human should make. You're bonded to creatures that kill for a living. We protect, Elena corrects coldly. We hunt those who threaten the innocent. Like me, Derek demands. Am I threatening the innocent by trying to save my friend from supernatural parasites? Elena's lips pull back to reveal teeth like ivory daggers. You are threatening my alpha's mate. That makes you a legitimate target. The front door explodes inward as Alexander arrives, his human form radiating barely contained violence. He takes in the scene instantly. Derek's hands on Sage, Elena in attack position, the family cowering against the far wall. Release her, Alexander says quietly, and the temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. No, Derek says, though his voice shakes. I'm taking her away from all of you. Back to the real world where she belongs. Alexander's silver eyes begin to glow with inhuman light. Release her. Now. Or what? You'll kill me? That's exactly what monsters do, isn't it? Kill anyone who gets in their way. Derek, please. Luna begs from across the room. Just let her go. This isn't helping anyone. But Derek is beyond reason now, driven by fear and desperation and the shattering of everything he thought he understood about reality. I'm not letting them take her, he declares. I don't care what I have to do. That's when Sage feels it, a strange weight in Derek's jacket pocket, cold metal that makes her new senses recoil in instinctive horror. Iron. He's carrying iron, the one substance that can truly harm their kind. Derek, she says urgently, what's in your pocket? Insurance, Derek says grimly. I did some research after our last conversation. Found out what really hurts your kind. Alexander goes perfectly still, his predatory instincts recognizing a legitimate threat. Elena's growl fills the room with menace. You came here armed, Sage whispers, the betrayal cutting deeper than any physical wound. I came here prepared to save you, Derek corrects. By any means necessary. He reaches into his pocket with his free hand, withdrawing a knife with an iron blade. The metal gleams dully in the afternoon light, and Sage can smell the wrongness of it, the way it seems to absorb warmth and life. Nobody moves, Derek says, holding the blade near Sage's throat. Nobody tries any supernatural tricks. We're walking out of here together, and anyone who follows us is going to find out how effective iron really is. The room erupts into chaos. Alexander lunges forward with inhuman speed, but Derek anticipates the move and presses the iron blade against Sage's neck. The touch burns like acid, drawing a scream of pain from her throat that stops Alexander in his tracks. I said don't move, Derek shouts, his own voice cracking with strain. Elena circles around behind them, looking for an opening, but Derek keeps the blade positioned where any sudden movement would result in Sage's death. This is insane, Diana cries. Derek, she's hurt. The knife is hurting her. It's the only thing that will break whatever hold they have on her, Derek says desperately. The iron disrupts their magic, makes them human again. It doesn't work like that, Sage gasps, tears streaming down her face as the iron continues to burn. Derek, please. You're killing me. I'm saving you, Derek insists, but doubt flickers in his eyes as he sees her genuine agony. The iron doesn't make us human, Elena snarls from behind him. It poisons us, slowly and painfully. You're lying, Derek says, but his conviction wavers. Look at her, Alexander says quietly, his voice thick with barely controlled rage. Look at what you're doing to someone you claim to love. Derek does look, and what he sees finally breaks through his desperate denial. Sage's skin where the iron touches is blistering, turning black as the metal burns through supernatural healing faster than her body can repair the damage. Oh God, Derek whispers. Oh God, what have I done? His grip loosens just enough for Sage to twist away from the blade. Alexander moves instantly, covering the distance between them in a blur. His hand closes around Derek's wrist with bone-crushing force, and the iron knife clatters to the floor. You nearly killed her, Alexander says, his voice barely human. Derek stares at his hand, at the blood on the blade, at Sage collapsed on the floor with Alexander kneeling beside her. I was trying to help. I thought I could save her. By murdering her? Elena demands, shifting back to human form. By poisoning her with the one substance that could actually destroy what she is. I didn't know, Derek whispers. I thought it would make her normal again. There is no normal for her, Alexander says coldly, cradling Sage against his chest. There is only what she is and what she chooses to become. Derek sinks to his knees, the full weight of what he's done crashing down on him. Sage, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I just wanted my friend back. Sage looks at him through pain-hazed eyes, the burned skin on her neck already beginning to heal now that the iron is gone. Your friend, she says quietly, was never who you thought she was, and she's never going to be the person you want her to be. The words carry finality that Derek can't argue with. He's lost her, not to supernatural manipulation or ancient curses, but to his own inability to accept who she really is. I think, Robert says quietly from where he's been watching the confrontation, it's time for you to leave, Derek, and not come back. Derek nods numbly, understanding that he's severed more than just his relationship with Sage today. He's destroyed the trust of everyone who cared about him. As he stumbles toward the door, Sage calls after him one last time. Derek. He turns, hope flickering in his eyes. If you ever come near my family again, she says, her voice carrying the authority of an apex predator, supernatural or human, I will hunt you down myself. The promise hangs in the air as Derek leaves, and Sage knows with absolute certainty that she'll never see him again, which is exactly what she wants. Chapter 15, Sage. The aftermath of Derek's attack leaves the house feeling like a crime scene. Sage sits on the couch with Alexander beside her, his fingers gently tracing the healing marks on her neck where the iron burned her. The wounds are already closing. One advantage of her supernatural nature, but the emotional damage will take longer to fade. I'm sorry, Diana says for the 5th time in 10 minutes. I'm so sorry we let him in. If we'd known he had that knife. You couldn't have known, Sage interrupts gently. None of us could have predicted he'd go that far. But even as she says it, part of her wonders if she should have seen the signs. Derek's desperation, his inability to accept her transformation, the way he'd been researching supernatural weaknesses. The clues were there. She just hadn't wanted to see them. He could have killed you, Luna says quietly from her position by the window. She's been watching the driveway nervously, as if expecting Derek to return with reinforcements. But he didn't, Sage replies, though the memory of iron burning through her flesh makes her shudder. Elena approaches from the kitchen, carrying a cup of something that smells like herbs and moonlight. Drink this, she says, offering it to Sage. It will help with the iron poisoning. Sage accepts the cup gratefully, though the bitter taste makes her wince. Almost immediately, she feels the last traces of the metal's toxicity fading from her system. What happens now? Robert asks. He's been quiet since Derek left, processing everything he witnessed. Do we need to worry about him coming back? About him telling others? Derek won't be a problem anymore, Alexander says with quiet certainty. He's seen too much, experienced too much. His mind will protect itself by convincing him it was all a hallucination brought on by stress. Is that how it works? Luna asks. Humans just forget. Most do, Elena confirms. The mind has powerful defense mechanisms against information that challenges core beliefs about reality. Derek will wake up tomorrow convinced he had some kind of breakdown. Sage finds the idea both comforting and heartbreaking. Derek's friendship meant something to her once, even if it became twisted by his inability to accept change. The thought that he'll forget all of this, forget what she's become, feels like losing him twice. There are more pressing concerns, Marcus says from the doorway. Sage hadn't heard him arrive, but she's getting used to the pack's ability to move silently when they choose. The extremist factions Elena mentioned? Alexander asks. Marcus nods grimly. Our scouts have picked up movement. 3 separate groups converging on this area, all heavily armed with iron weapons. How many? Elena asks. At least 24, possibly more. Marcus's expression grows darker. They've learned from the failure of the first attack. This time, they're not taking chances. The numbers hit Sage like a physical blow. 24 supernatural warriors armed with the one thing that can actually kill her kind, all focused on capturing or killing her. Why? She asks, though she's not sure she wants the answer. Why is my bloodline so important to them? Elena and Marcus exchange glances. Because of what you represent, Elena says carefully. The Moonshade line isn't just ancient, it's powerful in ways that haven't been seen for generations. What kind of power? The ability to bridge different supernatural species, Marcus explains. To unite factions that have been enemies for centuries. Your mother's bloodline carries genetic markers that make such alliances possible. You're talking about creating an army, Alexander says slowly. I'm talking about ending the wars that have torn our world apart for millennia, Elena corrects. With the right leadership, someone with Sage's heritage could bring together wolves, fae, vampires, even the old earth spirits. The scope of it overwhelms Sage. She's still learning to control her basic wolf abilities, and they're talking about her becoming some kind of supernatural diplomat. I don't know anything about other species, she protests. I barely understand my own nature. Understanding comes with time, Elena says gently. But the potential is already there. I've seen how you affect people, human and supernatural alike. There's something about your presence that inspires trust, cooperation. Or it makes me a target for everyone who prefers the current state of chaos, Sage says darkly. Which is why we need to leave, Alexander interjects. Tonight, before the extremists can coordinate their attack. Leave. Diana's voice cracks with panic. Where? For how long? Somewhere safe, Marcus answers. And for as long as it takes to eliminate the threats against her. That could be years, Robert says quietly. It could be forever, Alexander admits, and Sage feels his regret through their bond. The supernatural world doesn't forgive or forget easily. Luna stands abruptly, her composure finally cracking. This is insane. 3 weeks ago, we were planning my wedding. Now my sister is some kind of supernatural queen who has to flee for her life. Luna, Sage begins, but her sister cuts her off. No, this isn't fair. None of this is fair. You get to discover this amazing new world, these incredible abilities, and the rest of us just have to. What? Sit here and pretend our family hasn't been torn apart. The pain in Luna's voice breaks Sage's heart. In focusing on her own transformation and the dangers it brings, she's lost sight of how devastating this must be for her human family. What if I don't go? Sage asks suddenly. What if I stay and fight? You die, Elena says bluntly. You're powerful, but you're untrained. Against 24 iron-armed extremists, you wouldn't last 5 minutes. Not alone, Sage clarifies. With the pack. With allies. The pack is strong, Marcus acknowledges. But not strong enough to face those numbers in direct combat. Then we find more allies, Sage says, a plan beginning to form in her mind. Elena said my bloodline could unite different species. What if we start now? What if instead of running, we build the coalition that can actually end these wars? The room falls silent as everyone processes her suggestion. It's audacious, dangerous, and probably impossible. But it's also the first proactive solution anyone has proposed. You're talking about starting a supernatural revolution, Alexander says slowly. I'm talking about giving everyone a choice between endless war and lasting peace, Sage corrects. Let the extremists come. Let them see what happens when they attack someone who's building bridges instead of walls. It's too dangerous, Diana protests. Sage, you're barely 20 years old. You can't take on the responsibility for an entire supernatural world. Can I? Sage looks around the room, meeting each person's gaze in turn. Elena said I was born for this. Maybe it's time I stopped running from my destiny and started embracing it. Marcus is studying her with newfound respect. You're serious about this? Dead serious, Sage confirms. I'm tired of being a victim, tired of having my choices made for me by people who see me as either a prize to be won or a threat to be eliminated. What are you proposing exactly? Alexander asks, though she can feel his growing excitement through their bond. We reach out to the other species. We offer them something they've never had before. A chance to end the cycle of violence that's defined supernatural existence for centuries. Sage stands, energy coursing through her as the plan takes shape. And when the extremists come for me, they'll find themselves facing not just one pack, but a united front of every species that wants peace more than war. Elena smiles, and for the first time since Sage has known her, the expression is genuinely joyful. Your mother would be proud. This is exactly the kind of thinking that made the Moonshade line legendary. It's also the kind of thinking that got them killed, Marcus points out. By extremists who were fighting to preserve the old ways, Elena counters. This time we'll be ready for them. Sage feels Alexander's hand slip into hers, feels his strength and support flowing through their bond. Whatever happens next, she won't face it alone. So, she says, looking around at her family, both human and supernatural. Who wants to help me change the world? The silence that follows is pregnant with possibility. And for the first time since her transformation began, Sage feels like she's not just reacting to events, but actively shaping her own destiny. It's terrifying. It's exhilarating. It's exactly what she was born to do. Chapter 16, Sage. The next 24 hours pass in a whirlwind of preparation and outreach that leaves Sage feeling like she's stepped into a world she never knew existed. Elena and Marcus work their centuries-old contacts, reaching out to supernatural leaders across North America with a message that's both simple and revolutionary. Come to Crescent Falls and witness the birth of a new alliance. The responses vary from cautious interest to outright skepticism, but they come. By sunset on the second day, representatives from 5 different supernatural species have arrived in the small Maine town, transforming the quiet community into something resembling a supernatural summit. This is insane, Luna mutters, watching from the living room window as a figure that appears to be made entirely of shadow glides across their backyard. 3 days ago, the most exotic thing in Crescent Falls was the new Thai restaurant. Sage can't argue with that assessment. Their property has been transformed into neutral meeting ground, with various factions claiming different areas as temporary territory. The vampires have taken residence in the old root cellar, claiming they need protection from even filtered sunlight. The Fae have established themselves in the garden, surrounding themselves with flowers that bloom in impossible colors. A delegation of earth spirits has merged so completely with the old oak trees that Sage isn't entirely sure where the spirits end and the trees begin. Are you having second thoughts? Alexander asks, joining her by the window. His arm slides around her waist, offering comfort through both physical touch and their mental bond. Constantly, Sage admits. But that doesn't mean I'm going to back down. Through the glass, she watches Elena approach a tall figure with alabaster skin and silver hair that moves like liquid mercury. The vampire delegate has introduced herself as Catalina Ashford, and she's been coolly polite but clearly skeptical about the entire endeavor. The vampires are the key, Marcus had explained earlier. They have resources, territory, and enough military strength to make a real difference. But they also have the most to lose if this alliance fails. What do they have to lose? Sage had asked. Anonymity. They've survived for millennia by staying hidden, by avoiding large-scale conflicts. Joining this alliance would make them visible targets. Now, watching Elena negotiate with Catalina, Sage wonders if her grand plan is nothing more than naive idealism. These beings have been enemies for centuries. What makes her think she can unite them with pretty speeches about peace and cooperation? You're doubting yourself, Alexander observes, reading her emotions through their bond. Shouldn't I be? Look at this, Alex. I'm asking ancient, powerful beings to trust a 20-year-old who just learned she's not entirely human. You're asking them to trust the last of the Moonshade bloodline, Alexander corrects. Someone whose very existence represents the possibility of ending wars that have cost them all dearly. A commotion outside draws their attention. The Fae delegation has erupted into what looks like an argument, with flowers around them blooming and withering in rapid succession as their emotions spike. What's happening? Sage asks, already moving toward the door. Political differences, Marcus says grimly, intercepting her before she can go outside. The Winter Court and Summer Court representatives are having a territorial dispute over garden placement. They're fighting about flower beds? They're fighting about who has authority in this alliance, Marcus clarifies. The Fae don't do anything simply. Every action carries symbolic weight. Sage watches as the argument escalates, winter frost creeping across the ground from one delegate, while the other causes roses to bloom aggressively in response. At this rate, they'll destroy her mother's garden before the real negotiations even begin. I need to stop this, she says, but Marcus catches her arm. Sage, you can't just wade into Fae politics. There are protocols, proper channels. There are extremists approaching with iron weapons who want to kill me. Sage interrupts. I don't have time for protocols. She pushes past Marcus and strides outside, feeling the weight of every supernatural gaze turning toward her. The arguing Fae delegates freeze mid-gesture, their magical outbursts suddenly contained. Enough, Sage says, and her voice carries an authority she didn't know she possessed. We have real enemies approaching, and you're wasting time fighting each other over symbolic nonsense. The Winter Court representative, a ethereally beautiful woman with ice-blue skin, turns towards Sage with an expression of offended dignity. Young wolf, you do not understand the complexities. I understand that while you're arguing about garden space, there are 24 killers getting closer to my family. Sage cuts her off. I understand that every minute we waste on petty politics is a minute our real enemies use to organize. The Summer Court delegate, a man whose skin seems to contain actual sunlight, steps forward. The young alpha speaks truly. Perhaps we should focus on the threat at hand. The threat, the Winter Fae says icily, is trusting our centuries of careful neutrality to an untested child who thinks passion can substitute for wisdom. Sage feels her temper flare, feels her wolf nature responding to the challenge. But before she can say something that might destroy the alliance before it truly begins, another voice cuts through the tension. The child has more wisdom than any of you. Everyone turns toward the source of the voice. An ancient oak tree at the edge of the property is changing. The bark shifts and flows, revealing a face that might have been carved by wind and time. When the earth spirit speaks again, the voice comes from the tree itself, deep as roots and patient as stone. I have been watching this land for 800 years, the spirit continues. I have seen the wars, the bloodshed, the endless cycle of revenge that has poisoned the earth itself. If this young one offers a chance to break that cycle, only fools would refuse to listen. The weight of 8 centuries gives the spirit's words undeniable authority. Even the Fae delegates seem subdued by the endorsement. What do you ask of us? Catalina inquires, her vampire composure unruffled by the supernatural politics around her. Sage looks around at the assembled representatives, beings of such power and age that her human mind struggles to process their true nature. A week ago, she didn't even know they existed. Now she's asking them to follow her into a war that could reshape their entire world. I ask you to stand with me, she says simply. Not as separate species competing for territory and resources, but as allies united against those who would use violence to maintain the status quo. And after? The Winter Fae asks. When the extremists are defeated, what then? Then we build something new, Sage replies. A council where disputes are settled through dialogue instead of bloodshed. Territory shared instead of hoarded. Resources pooled for the common good. A pretty dream, Catalina observes. But dreams have a way of becoming nightmares when they meet reality. So does the alternative, Alexander interjects, joining Sage in the center of the group. How many more centuries of war? How many more deaths over ancient grudges that no one even remembers the origins of? Marcus emerges from the house, his expression grim. The scouts have returned. The extremist forces are 6 hours out. They'll arrive just after midnight. 6 hours. Sage feels her stomach drop as the reality hits her. In 6 hours, she'll either unite these disparate factions into something unprecedented, or she'll die trying. So, she says, looking around at the supernatural assembly. Who's ready to make history? The silence stretches for long moments. Then the earth spirit speaks again, ancient bark creaking with amusement. I have seen enough history, young wolf. I am ready to see something new. The Summer Fae delegate nods slowly. The summer court will stand with the moonshade air. As will winter, his counterpart adds, though her tone suggests she thinks they're all making a terrible mistake. Catalina is quiet longer, her ageless features unreadable. When she finally speaks, her voice carries the weight of centuries of careful calculation. The vampires will commit resources to this venture, but we will require certain assurances about our ongoing autonomy. We'll negotiate the details after we survive the night, Sage promises. Marcus steps forward, his expression showing something that might be pride. The Crescent Falls pack stands ready to coordinate defense. Sage looks around at the unlikely alliance she's assembled. Wolves, vampires, fae, earth spirits, all united by her desperate gamble that cooperation might be stronger than centuries of mistrust. Then let's get to work, she says. We have 6 hours to prepare for a war. As the various factions begin coordinating their defensive strategies, Sage feels a moment of quiet satisfaction. She's done it. She's actually done it. Brought together beings who have been enemies since before human civilization began. Now she just has to keep them all alive long enough for the alliance to matter. Through her bond with Alexander, she feels his fierce pride and love, along with his absolute certainty that whatever comes next, they'll face it together. It's enough. Whatever happens in the next 6 hours, it's enough. Chapter 17, Sage. Midnight approaches like a storm front, heavy with the promise of violence. Sage stands at the edge of the forest, watching the tree line for the first signs of the approaching extremist force. Behind her, the most unlikely army in supernatural history prepares for battle. The vampires have positioned themselves in the shadows, their pale forms nearly invisible in the darkness. Catalina moves among them with fluid grace, coordinating defensive positions with the efficiency of someone who has survived centuries of warfare. The Fae have transformed the garden into something from a fever dream. Winter and summer magic interweave in complex patterns, creating barriers of thorns that gleam with both frost and flame. The competing courts have found common ground in their shared artistry of destruction. The earth spirits have gone deep, their consciousness spread through root networks that span miles. They'll feel the extremists coming long before visual confirmation, their ancient awareness reading the vibrations of approaching feet like a language older than words. And the wolves, her pack, Alexander's pack, their pack now, prowl the perimeter with restless energy. Even in human form, they move with predatory grace that speaks of barely contained violence. Nervous? Alexander asks, appearing beside her with that silent way pack members have of moving. Terrified, Sage admits. What if this doesn't work? What if I've just gathered everyone here to die? Then we die fighting for something better instead of living with something broken, Alexander replies simply. I can think of worse fates. Through their bond, Sage feels his absolute confidence in her leadership, his unwavering belief that she's capable of the impossible. It should be comforting, but the weight of everyone's faith feels crushing. Movement. Marcus calls softly from his position near the main road. 2 vehicles, moving without headlights. Just 2. Elena frowns. Intelligence suggested at least 24 combatants. Advanced scouts, Catalina says, her vampire hearing picking up details the others miss. Testing our defenses before the main force commits. Sage nods, trying to project more confidence than she feels. Let them look. Let them see what they're up against. The vehicles cruise slowly past the property, their occupants no doubt taking note of the unusual energy signatures emanating from the assembled supernatural forces. Even heavily armed extremists would have to reconsider their approach when faced with a united front of this magnitude. Or so Sage hopes. The cars disappear around a bend, but the feeling of being watched doesn't fade. If anything, it intensifies, as if invisible eyes have settled on the property and won't be easily discouraged. They'll be back, the earth spirit observes, its voice rustling through the leaves of every tree simultaneously. More of them. They gather in the old quarry 3 miles north. How many? Sage asks. Difficult to say. Their iron weapons create distortion in the natural rhythms. But many. More than the initial reports suggested. Sage's stomach tightens. More than 24 extremists armed with iron weapons, all focused on capturing or killing her. The alliance she's built is impressive, but it's still largely untested. These beings have never fought together before, have never had to coordinate their wildly different abilities in actual combat. Second thoughts? The Winter Fae asks, approaching with that gliding movement that makes her appear to float rather than walk. Constantly, Sage admits. But I'm not backing down. Good. Doubt keeps one cautious. Overconfidence kills. The Fae's ice-blue eyes study Sage with something that might be approval. You show wisdom unusual for one so young. I show terror disguised as determination, Sage corrects. Often the same thing, the Fae observes with a razor-thin smile. A new sound cuts through the night air. Engines, multiple vehicles, approaching fast. The extremist force has finished their reconnaissance and decided to commit to a direct assault. Positions, Marcus barks, and the supernatural alliance shifts into defensive formation with surprising coordination. The vampires vanish into shadow so completely that even Sage's enhanced senses can't track them. The Fae begin weaving combat magic that makes the air itself shimmer with dangerous potential. The earth spirits sink deeper into their wooden forms, becoming living fortresses rooted in stone and soil. And the wolves let their human facades slip just enough to reveal the predators beneath. Sage feels her own transformation stirring as adrenaline floods her system. The wolf wants to emerge, wants to meet this threat with tooth and claw rather than words and diplomacy. But she forces herself to remain in human form. This battle will be won or lost based on the alliance she's built, not on her individual fighting ability. The first vehicle rounds the bend at dangerous speed, its headlights cutting through the darkness like searchlights. It's followed by another, then another. A convoy of black SUVs that scream official authority, even though Sage knows they represent anything but legitimate law enforcement. The lead vehicle stops just beyond the property line, and figures begin emerging into the night. Even in the darkness, Sage can see the glint of metal, iron weapons designed specifically to kill her kind. A man steps forward from the group, tall and lean with the kind of military bearing that speaks of professional training. When he speaks, his voice carries easily across the distance between them. I am Commander Kane of the Purity Coalition. We're here for the Moonshade Heir. Surrender her peacefully, and the rest of you will be permitted to disperse unharmed. The silence that follows his ultimatum is pregnant with menace. Sage feels the supernatural forces around her coiling like springs, ready to unleash devastating violence at the first sign of aggression. Counteroffer, Catalina calls back, her vampire voice carrying undertones that make even Sage's spine tingle. Leave now, and we won't paint this forest with your blood. Kane's laugh is harsh and humorless. Impressive alliance, I'll give you that. But iron trumps magic every time. And we have plenty of iron. As if summoned by his words, more figures emerge from the vehicles. Sage counts at least 30 combatants, all heavily armed and moving with the coordinated precision of a military unit. Whatever the Purity Coalition is, they're well-funded and professionally trained. Last chance, King calls out. Hand over the girl, and this ends quietly. Sage steps forward, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze settling on her shoulders. This is it. The moment where her grand alliance either proves itself or crumbles under the reality of actual warfare. My name is Sage Blackwood, she calls back, her voice carrying further than it should thanks to supernatural enhancement. And I am the last of the Moonshade bloodline. If you want me, come and take me. Kane's response is immediate and devastating. He raises his hand in a signal, and iron-tipped arrows begin raining down from positions Sage hadn't even known existed. The extremists have surrounded the property, turning the defensive positions into a killing ground. Incoming, Marcus shouts, but the supernatural alliance is already moving. The earth spirits respond first, massive root systems erupting from the ground to form barriers against the iron projectiles. The Fae add their own defenses, walls of thorns and ice that deflect arrows even as the iron burns through their magic. The vampires vanish entirely, reappearing behind enemy lines with speed that defies physics. Catalina moves through the extremist ranks like a force of nature, her supernatural strength turning iron weapons into twisted metal. And the wolves do what wolves do best. They hunt. Alexander leads the charge, his pack flowing around him like extensions of his will. They don't attack the heavily armed center of the extremist force. Instead, they target the flanks, the support positions, the archers hidden in the darkness. Sage finds herself in the center of the chaos, protected by layers of supernatural defenses, but still feeling helplessly exposed. Every instinct screams at her to transform, to join the battle directly, but she forces herself to maintain human form and focus on coordination. Left flank is compromised, she calls out, seeing extremist forces breaking through the vampire assault. Elena, can your people? Already moving. Elena's mental voice cuts through the battle noise. The coordination works. Despite never having fought together before, the supernatural alliance moves with increasing cohesion. Each species covers the other's weaknesses, creating a defensive web that the extremists struggle to penetrate. But Cain isn't finished. Sage sees him raising some kind of device, a cylinder that gleams with unnatural light. When he triggers it, the effect is immediate and devastating. A wave of pure iron essence rolls across the battlefield, and every supernatural being it touches screams in agony. The vampires collapse, their enhanced speed useless against the metal poisoning flooding their systems. The phase magic sputters and dies like candles in a hurricane. Even the ancient earth spirits writhe in pain as iron contamination seeps into the soil itself. Only the wolves remain standing, their natural resistance to iron providing limited protection. But limited isn't enough against the coordinated assault that follows. Fall back, Marcus shouts, but there's nowhere to retreat to. They're surrounded, outgunned, and rapidly losing their supernatural advantages. Sage realizes with crystal clarity that her grand alliance is about to be slaughtered, and it's entirely her fault. She brought these beings together, convinced them to trust her judgment, and led them into a trap she was too naive to anticipate. The weight of that failure crystallizes into something else, a rage so pure and focused that it burns away her human restraints entirely. Sage's transformation comes not as a controlled shift, but as an explosion of power that sends shockwaves through the supernatural and human forces alike. But this isn't the silver wolf she's been learning to become. This is something else entirely. Her wolf form blazes with moonlight made manifest, silver fire that turns night into day. The iron essence that crippled her allies simply dissolves in her presence, neutralized by power that predates the conflicts between species. Impossible, Cain breathes, his military composure cracking for the first time. Sage looks at him with eyes that burn like stars and speaks with a voice that carries the authority of bloodlines stretching back to the dawn of supernatural existence. You have threatened my family, my friends, my mates. Each word hits like a physical blow. You have brought war to those who offered peace. The power radiating from her is unlike anything the extremists have prepared for. Their iron weapons, so effective against ordinary supernatural beings, seem suddenly inadequate against whatever she's become. Now, Sage says, and her voice carries across the battlefield like judgment itself, face the consequences. Chapter 18, Sage. The power coursing through Sage's transformed body is unlike anything she's ever experienced. It's not just the wolf. It's something deeper, older, a connection to forces that existed before the supernatural world fractured into warring species. She can feel the iron essence dissipating around her like morning mist, neutralized by whatever she's become. The supernatural alliance, freed from the metal's poisoning effects, begins to recover. Vampires regain their speed, fey magic reignites, and the earth spirit's pain recedes. But it's the extremist reaction that truly reveals the magnitude of her transformation. These are trained soldiers, professionals who have spent years hunting supernatural beings. They should be attacking, pressing their advantage while they still have superior numbers. Instead, they're backing away. What is she? One of them whispers, his voice carrying in the sudden stillness. Commander Cain's military composure has cracked entirely. He stares at Sage with the expression of a man watching his worldview collapse in real time. The report said she was a newly awakened half-blood, he says, more to himself than his men. Untrained. Vulnerable. Your reports, Sage says, her voice resonating with harmonics that make the ground itself vibrate, were incomplete. She takes a step forward, and every extremist takes a step back. Their iron weapons, so effective against ordinary supernatural beings, seem suddenly inadequate against whatever she's become. You came here to capture or kill the last of the Moonshade bloodline, Sage continues. But you never bothered to learn what that bloodline actually represents. Elena's voice reaches her through the pack bond, weak but filled with awe. Sage, your power signature, it's off the charts. You're not just accessing your wolf nature. No, Sage agrees, understanding flooding through her even as she speaks. I'm accessing all of it. Every strand of supernatural DNA in my bloodline awakens simultaneously. It's impossible, of course. No single being should be able to channel the combined magical heritage of multiple species. The power should tear her apart from the inside. But the Moonshade bloodline wasn't ordinary. Her ancestors had been bridges between species, their genetics carrying markers from wolves, fae, earth spirits, even traces of vampire heritage from ancient crossbreeding. What should have been a weakness, too diluted to be purely anything, has become her greatest strength. Fall back, Cain orders his men, but his voice lacks conviction. Too late for that, Alexander says, appearing beside Sage in his wolf form. The pack has reformed around their alpha's mate, their earlier injuries forgotten in the face of this new development. The supernatural alliance rallies as well. Catalina moves with liquid grace, her vampire speed fully restored. The Fae begin weaving combat magic that makes the air shimmer with deadly potential. The earth spirits rise from the soil like ancient guardians awakening from slumber. But none of them move to attack. They're waiting for Sage's command, recognizing instinctively that the dynamics of this battle have fundamentally changed. You have a choice, Sage tells the extremists, her transformed presence making the words feel like a royal decree. Withdraw now and live to reconsider your positions. Continue this assault, and face the consequences of threatening a united supernatural alliance. Cain's hand tightens on his weapon, some kind of modified rifle designed to fire iron core ammunition. His training tells him to fight, to press the attack despite impossible odds. But his survival instincts are screaming warnings about the power radiating from the figure before him. The Purity Coalition doesn't negotiate with monsters, he says finally, raising his weapon. The iron bullet tears through the air where Sage was standing, but she's no longer there. The enhanced speed isn't vampire quick or wolf fast. It's something entirely new, a teleportation that bypasses physical movement entirely. She reappears directly in front of Cain, close enough to smell his fear and see the shock in his eyes. I am not a monster, she says quietly, her hand closing around the barrel of his rifle. The metal crumples like paper. I am evolution. Cain stumbles backward, but there's nowhere to retreat. His men have their weapons trained on Sage, but none of them are firing. They can sense what their leader refuses to acknowledge, that they're outmatched in every conceivable way. Your iron weapons, Sage continues, addressing the entire extremist force, are designed to poison and weaken supernatural beings by disrupting their magical essence. But what happens when you face someone whose essence is strong enough to neutralize the iron itself? As if to demonstrate, she reaches for one of the discarded iron arrows. The metal hisses and steams where she touches it, the iron transforming into harmless steel through contact with her power. Impossible, Cain breathes. Inevitable, Sage corrects. This is what the supernatural world becomes when it stops fighting itself and starts working together. This is what you've been trying to prevent. The truth hits Cain like a physical blow. The Purity Coalition hasn't been fighting to preserve some natural order. They've been fighting to prevent evolution, to keep the supernatural world fractured and weak. You're talking about fundamental change to the way our species interact, Cain says, his military mind finally grasping the implications. I'm talking about survival, Sage replies. For all of us, human and supernatural alike. She gestures to the supernatural alliance arranged around her. Vampires, fae, earth spirits, and wolves standing together despite centuries of mutual hostility. Look at what we've accomplished in a single night. Imagine what we could achieve with years of cooperation. For a moment, Cain's expression wavers. The career soldier in him recognizes tactical superiority when he sees it, and the pragmatist understands that continued resistance is suicide. But then his radio crackles to life. Commander Cain, this is base. Orbital surveillance shows additional supernatural forces converging on your position. ETA 15 minutes. Cain's expression hardens. Copy that base. Initiating Protocol 7. Sage feels a chill that has nothing to do with the night air. What's Protocol 7? Cain's smile is bitter and resigned. If we can't eliminate the threat through conventional means, we eliminate it through unconventional ones. He pulls a device from his tactical vest, something that looks like a military radio but hums with unnatural energy. You think you've won because you've neutralized our iron weapons, Cain says. But iron was never our final solution. The device begins to emit a high-pitched whine that makes every supernatural being in the area flinch. Sage feels it like fingernails on a chalkboard, a frequency specifically designed to disrupt supernatural nervous systems. Sonic disruptor. Elena gasps, her ancient form writhing in pain. They're weaponizing sound itself. The extremists don protective gear as the frequency increases, while the supernatural alliance begins to collapse. Even Sage, with all her newfound power, feels her consciousness fragmenting under the assault. Protocol 7, Kane shouts over the device's shrieking, is area denial through sonic purging. Every supernatural being within a mile radius will be rendered unconscious or dead within 3 minutes. Sage tries to move, tries to destroy the device, but the sonic assault is targeting the very frequencies her brain uses to control her enhanced abilities. Her transformation flickers, human and wolf forms blurring together as her nervous system struggles to maintain coherence. Around her, the supernatural alliance is falling. Vampires collapse, their enhanced senses making them especially vulnerable. The phase magic sputters and dies as they lose the ability to concentrate. Even the earth spirits are retreating deep underground, seeking escape from the punishing frequency. 2 minutes, Kane announces with grim satisfaction. That's when Sage realizes the truth. Her power isn't just supernatural, it's also deeply human. The part of her that thinks, that reasons, that chooses cooperation over conflict. The sonic disruptor can attack her supernatural abilities, but it can't touch her humanity. And her humanity is exactly what she needs. Fighting through the disorienting effects of the sonic assault, Sage forces herself back to full human form. The pain lessens immediately. She's still affected, but not incapacitated. You made one mistake, she tells Kane, her voice barely audible over the device's shrieking. What mistake? You assumed my power comes from what I am instead of who I am. Sage reaches for the device, not with supernatural speed or strength, but with simple human determination. Kane tries to stop her, but his reflexes are slowed by the protective gear he's wearing. Her fingers close around the sonic disruptor, and she feels it fighting her, trying to complete its deadly work. But she's not trying to overpower it with magic. She's trying to understand it with intelligence. The device is sophisticated, but it's still human technology. And Sage spent years tutoring classmates in electronics and engineering before she ever knew she wasn't entirely human. With careful, precise movements, she finds the frequency modulator and begins making adjustments. The shrieking whine changes pitch, then begins to decrease in intensity. Stop, Kane orders, raising his sidearm. No, Alexander says, appearing behind the commander in a blur of motion. His transformation is incomplete, caught between human and wolf, but it's enough to disarm Kane before he can fire. Sage continues her work, recalibrating the device's frequency until it's no longer targeting supernatural nervous systems. Instead, she sets it to emit a tone that's merely annoying to everyone present. The sonic assault ends with an anticlimactic whimper. Around the battlefield, supernatural beings begin recovering from the attack. They're hurt, disoriented, but alive. And more importantly, they're angry. That, Catalina says, rising gracefully to her feet with murder in her eyes, was extremely unpleasant. The extremist forces find themselves surrounded by supernatural beings who have just survived 2 separate attempts at genocide in a single night. The odds, never favorable, have become impossible. Kane looks around at his men, at the supernatural alliance, at Sage who stands holding the neutralized weapon that was supposed to ensure their victory. We surrender, he says simply. It's over. The battle, the immediate threat, the war that might have consumed the supernatural world. All ended by a 20-year-old college student who refused to choose between her human intellect and her supernatural power. Sage looks around at the aftermath, at the alliance that survived its first real test, at the future that suddenly seems possible instead of inevitable. Now what? Alexander asks, moving to stand beside her. Sage considers the question, feeling the weight of leadership settling on her shoulders like a mantle she's finally ready to wear. Now, she says, we build something better. Chapter 19, Sage. 6 months after the battle that changed everything, Sage stands before the newly constructed council chamber in what was once an abandoned mill outside Crescent Falls. The building has been transformed into something unprecedented. A neutral meeting space where representatives from every major supernatural species can gather without fear of ancient territorial disputes. The morning sunlight streams through tall windows that were specially designed to accommodate vampire delegates, with UV filters that allow natural light while providing necessary protection. Feyrock gardens surround the building, their impossible blooms serving as both decoration and defensive measure. Earth spirit roots run deep beneath the foundation, creating a living network that can detect threats from miles away. Nervous, Alexander asks, appearing beside her with that silent grace she's come to love. Terrified, Sage admits, adjusting the formal jacket that feels too constraining after months of wearing whatever was practical for training. What if they reject the proposal? Then we try again, Alexander says simply. Change takes time. Through the windows, Sage can see delegates arriving for what the supernatural community has dubbed the First Accords. Catalina glides up the front steps with her vampire entourage, their pale skin protected by specially designed umbrellas. The Fey courts arrive in separate processions, winter and summer maintaining their ancient rivalry even as they work toward common goals. Earth spirits manifest throughout the grounds, ancient beings taking temporary physical form to participate in governance for the first time in millennia. Even more exotic creatures have come. Selkies from the northern coasts, phoenix representatives from the southwestern deserts, and shape-changers whose true forms remain carefully hidden. All here to vote on Sage's proposal for a permanent supernatural council. The wolf packs are fully committed, Marcus reports, joining them by the window. 37 alpha territories have signed the preliminary agreement. And the vampires? Sage asks. Catalina has been persuasive with the holdout covens, Marcus says diplomatically. Let's just say the benefits of cooperation have been made very clear. Sage nods, trying to calm her racing heart. 6 months of negotiations, compromises, and carefully built trust all comes down to today's vote. If the council is approved, it will mark the first time in recorded history that supernatural species have formally agreed to unified governance. If it fails, it won't fail, Elena says, approaching with the confident stride of someone who has seen centuries of change. You've given them something they've never had before. Hope that the future can be different from the past. Have I? Or have I just convinced them to try something that will end in disaster? Elena's smile is warm with genuine affection. Child, I have lived through 800 years of supernatural warfare. Disaster is what we've been living with. This is hope. The formal session begins at noon, with delegates taking their assigned seats in the circular chamber. The design is deliberately non-hierarchical. No head table, no elevated positions, just equals gathering to make decisions about their shared future. Sage takes her position as the proposed first speaker, the role she's reluctantly accepted despite feeling completely unqualified for supernatural leadership. The irony isn't lost on her that 6 months ago, she didn't even know werewolves existed. Now she's expected to mediate disputes between beings older than human civilization. The First Accord's proposal is before the council, she begins, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber through both supernatural enhancement and carefully designed acoustics. We've all reviewed the terms. The floor is open for final debate. The discussion that follows is heated but civil, a marked improvement from the early negotiations when vampire and fey delegates had nearly come to blows over territorial boundaries. Months of working together toward common goals have built trust, even if ancient animosities still simmer beneath the surface. The Earth Spirit delegate speaks first, their voice carrying the weight of geological time. The proposal offers structure without rigidity, governance without oppression. The Earth Spirits approve. The Summer Court finds the terms acceptable, the Fey representative adds, though we reserve the right to renegotiate territorial provisions in 50 years. The Winter Court concurs, her counterpart states, with similar reservations about temporal limitations. The vampires take longer to debate among themselves, their discussion conducted in rapid whispers too quiet for even supernatural hearing to follow. Finally, Catalina rises. The vampire covens approve the accords, with the understanding that enforcement will respect our traditional autonomy in matters of feeding and reproduction. One by one, the other species add their approval. Not unanimous. Several smaller factions abstain, unwilling to commit to such unprecedented cooperation. But the majority is clear and overwhelming. The motion passes, Sage announces, her voice barely steady. The Supernatural Council is officially established. The chamber erupts in applause, but it's the sound of something larger than mere approval. It's the sound of hope being given voice, of ancient enemies choosing cooperation over conflict. As delegates begin the complex process of signing formal documents and establishing initial governance structures, Alexander appears at Sage's side. "How does it feel to make history?" he asks. "Exhausting," Sage admits, "and slightly unreal. A year ago, I was worried about college applications. Now I'm helping govern the supernatural world. Any regrets?" Sage considers the question seriously. Her human life, college, career, the normal progression of mortal existence, feels like something from another person's memory. The choices she's made have cost her the familiar rhythms of ordinary life. But they've given her something extraordinary in return. "No," she says finally. "No regrets." "Good," Alexander says, his silver eyes warm with love and pride. "Because there's something I need to ask you." Before Sage can respond, Alexander drops to one knee in the middle of the historic chamber, producing a ring that catches the light like captured starfire. "We're already bonded for life," he says, his voice carrying to every delegate in the room. "But I want to make it official in every way that matters. Sage Blackwood, will you marry me?" The chamber falls silent, supernatural beings of immense power and age holding their breath as they wait for her answer. Sage looks down at Alexander. Ancient, powerful, patient Alexander who waited 3 centuries to find her, who believed in her potential before she knew she had any, who stood by her through transformation, conflict, and the impossible challenge of uniting enemies into allies. "Yes," she says, and the word echoes through the chamber like a promise. "Yes, I'll marry you." The applause this time is deafening, supernatural beings celebrating not just political alliance, but the love story that made it all possible. As Alexander slips the ring onto her finger, Sage realizes that this is exactly where she belongs. Not in the human world she left behind, not fully in the supernatural realm she's entered, but in the space between worlds, building bridges that others thought impossible. It's a good place to be. Epilogue. 1 year later. The wedding is held at sunset in the same clearing where Sage first encountered the white wolf that changed her life forever. The guest list reads like a supernatural who's who. Vampire covens standing alongside earth spirits. Fae courts mingling with werewolf packs. All united in celebration. Sage walks down an aisle lined with flowers that bloom in colors that don't exist in nature. Her dress a gift from the winter court that seems to be woven from moonlight itself. Her human family sits in the front row. Diana crying happy tears, Robert beaming with pride, Luna serving as maid of honor despite her ongoing bewilderment at her sister's extraordinary life. Alexander waits at the makeshift altar, magnificent in formal attire that somehow manages to contain his wild nature without diminishing it. When their eyes meet, Sage feels the bond between them resonate with perfect harmony. Elena officiates, her ancient authority lending gravity to vows that will bind not just 2 hearts but 2 worlds. When they exchange rings and seal their union with a kiss, the supernatural alliance cheers as one. The reception that follows is unlike anything in either human or supernatural tradition. Vampires waltz with werewolves while Fae nobles debate philosophy with earth spirits. It's chaotic, impossible, and absolutely perfect. Any regrets? Alexander asks as they share their first dance as husband and wife. Sage looks around at the celebration. At the vampire delegate teaching her father to tango, at Luna deep in conversation with a phoenix about flame-resistant photography, at the supernatural alliance she helped build now dancing together under the stars. "Just one," she says. Alexander's expression grows concerned. "What?" "I regret that it took me 20 years to find you," Sage says with a smile. "Think of all the time we could have had." Alexander spins her in a circle that leaves her laughing and breathless. "We have eternity now. I think that's enough time to make up for it." As they dance beneath the full moon, surrounded by friends and family from both their worlds, Sage knows he's right. They have forever. To love, to lead, to build the better world they've envisioned together. And forever, she's discovered, is exactly long enough. The end.